Hey, I didn't oversleep, did I? I'm not late, your invisible clock is just fast. And it's a coincidence that I'm late. You might think that I've been taking a long time to make this video, but you could argue I've just been building up suspense all this time. Please argue. In case you haven't seen the first part, I'm talking about weapons, people. All weapons. A rundown of their patch history and my personal thoughts on them. 2 rules. No stock and absolutely no reskin. This time, I'm learning from my mistakes. Instead of interrupting myself every few minutes to talk about a reskin I really like, I'm just gonna do a lightning round of all of them here. Think of it like eating dessert before a big meal. I know you typically do that after, but I have to play catch up, so let's just start with a really weird dessert. The festive sandwich is just so cute and so dumb, I love it. What a way to make your medic feel appreciated with this hand-wrapped gift of glutton. If you don't want to shove paper in your mouth though, how about scrap metal? I rarely see this sandwich reskin, and maybe that's what draws me to it so much. I also think it's funny to imagine Heavy getting shot, causing him to pull out a handful of sheet metal from his pocket, take a bite out of it in front of the entire enemy team. And just the sheer fear and confusion of them witnessing that makes Heavy feel stronger. The fish cake is really bland and boring. It's the pixel variant of TF2 reskins, where if I received it, I would rather just use the default skin. Who the fuck wants to eat this when you have a chocolate bar? The Apoco Fists. Need I say more? I would have put a Mr. Torg joke here, but I don't think I'm a real fan of the series anymore. The Bread Bites may very well be one of the best reskins in the game. I think a good reskin is one that gives the player incentive to use the item more, not by giving them a strategic advantage or buffing their stats, but just because they want to. Look at these things, literally chomping at the bit to fight your enemies. Anyway, the Iron Curtain is lame as fuck. Honest to God, I always think this weapon is a mod before I actually see it in a server. Which is never, so it always ends up getting put in a mod folder in my brain. The Geiger counter is, it's fine. It's decently cool, I guess. I don't know, when you can put sentient, homicidal bread monsters on each of your hands, going from a satellite to a scanner is like putting a toothpick in your mouth. Holy shit, who's that cool guy? I didn't really cover festive weapons in the reskin sections because a lot of the time, it's just Christmas lights wrapped around a weapon. Which, don't get me wrong, I love every single festive weapon, but there's just not much to talk about. However, this is one of those special cases. The Festive Crusader's Crossbow. It shoots candy cans. Yeah, that's it. That's all. I just think that's really neat. The Upper Hand. It's the upper hand. If you're a real head clicker and or someone that has made playing sniper your entire personality, and or you write out Latin proverbs in your weapon description of your rifle, and or you're a basic bitch. Damn, I forgot where I was going with this. Look, it's the op. Of course it's cool, but it's kind of like BoJack Horseman. I love it, but I just hate the people that associate with it. Does that make any sense? Not you, Johnny. The Fortified Compound, boring. The Shooting Star. God, what a cool reskin. I have a theory, actually. Your opinions on the Shooting Star are entirely dependent on how often you use the Gauss rifle in New Vegas. Okay, I'm not gonna elaborate. If you get me, you get me. It's funny because I think generally speaking, the Machina gets a pretty bad rep. It's the noob gun, it's the body shot machine, yada yada. But then you slap a sci-fi filter on it and, well, okay, I guess a more sci-fi filter on it, and bang, cue the toothpick. Okay, you know how I said that the Bread Bite is one of the best reskins? This one is the best. Besides the pan, please don't crucify me. Watching this thing latch onto a player's face flopping like a fish never fails to make me laugh. Like, look at this thing. It's so nice that they did it twice. I wish instead of the Girardi filter on your screen, you just got a POV shot of being nibbled on by this souped up loaf of bread. Big kill? Don't you mean... Big Iron? Okay, the Sharp Dresser is definitely one of the coolest. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. 11-year-old Pastel Witch wanted this more than any other weapon. Any other weapon. I still do, to be honest. This is what I'm talking about when I say a reskin that just makes you want to use it. Like, if I had this, I'd actually try to learn Spy. Are you kidding me? I'd never play normally again. I would do whatever I can do, whatever it takes to get a kill with this thing. You know what? No, I don't even need the kill. All I need, that right there, that's it. I could do that 20 times walking to point, die without killing anyone, and I'd still be happy. So why don't I think this is one of the best, like the Bread Boy reskins? If the knife had jigglebone physics, it'd be top tier. The Black Rose, it's pretty. Wanga Prick. Yeah, I could be a prick. Pretty lame! No, but seriously, the Wanga Prick is actually pretty creative and cool looking. The Enthusiast Timepiece and the Quackenbert. You know, one of these is high quality fashion, truly embodying the likes of Versace or Gucci. And the other is the timepiece. Yeah, you knew where that was going. Whatever madman decided to put... How many lines actually? Hold on, let me look this up. I'm looking this up in real time. I genuinely don't remember. I want to say it's like 15 minutes. 13 minutes, motherfucker. 13 minutes. Shout out Gladys Cube. You're insane for this. Whoever decided to do this, God bless you. 13 minutes. That is the number 10 with an additional 3 minutes. Whoever decided to put 13 minutes of Wheatley dialogue into this glorified Portal 2 advertisement, I hope you died from drowning in all the pussy you got. If you like penis, that's cool too. I just don't think drowning in penises sounds as nice. Anyway, Wheatley is one of the greatest reskins. I know, you're gonna hear me say that a lot, I know, but I'm a big Portal 2 shill, and I love Wheatley, and I love this item. Now, unlike the other Bread Boy weapon variants, I don't really like the snack attack. I don't think it's as creative or intuitive as the other breaded weapons. Like, shoving your fists into two bread monsters and using them as sharp gloves, it's silly, it makes sense. Throwing the bread monster to latch onto people's faces like some dumb version of biological warfare, fantastic. But when it comes to the snack attack, they just put a piece of bread on a sapper. Like, yeah, no duh, but there's no connecting tissue there. Why does this bread monster short-circuit machinery? It would be like if they just slapped the bread monster's mouth over the minigun, and even that would be cooler and make more sense. Have it, I don't know, puke up some monster fluid that heals people or something. At least that would be kinda silly. Apart from an okay pun, this reskin just doesn't have anything for me. He will not be invited to the Bread Boy party. Now this one, it's cute. It's simple, plays into the giving a gift to someone part. I like the cute art of the mercs on it. This one's nice. Okay, now to get into the real meat and bones of the-
Oh, hey!
Right, I guess I didn't really cover yours in the first video. Let's run through them quickly. For my opinions on the mutated milk, see the self-aware beauty mark. For the festive bonk, it's one of the coolest reskins in the game. It makes me want to use bonk all the time, and I don't even like bonk. It has so much personality to it. It looks so cool. I wish, god damn it, I wish that hacker didn't take it from me. The bat saber, oh my god. Okay, I take it back. This is the best one. It's the lightsaber. Of course, it's amazing. The festive holy mag. Wait. Slow everything down right now. Stop it. That's not what the festive holy mackerel looks like. There's like a light in its mouth, and it's yeah, that one. Where is the what happened to? There's two. Fuck it. This one is better than this one. Wait, come to think of it, the holy mackerel itself is a reskin. God, how many layers deep does this go? Look, it's one of the most infamously funny weapons. You're smacking a guy with a fish in a newspaper. Haha, it's great, it's good. Yeah, of course, it's the standard good reskin weapon. The unarmed combat. Fuck. Okay, shut up. All right, I know you've heard this before. Shut up. I know you've heard it, but this actually is the best reskin. It's gruesome. It's hilarious. It's creative. It is so damn good. This is the reskin I've wanted more than any other reskin on this list, exemplified by just how rarely I see it in use. And the 3-rune blade is sick. Woo! Okay, now let's get into the... Fine, let's get this over, talk about these ones too. The Capper. Laser pistol go pew pew, me likey. Everyone was using it around the time of the Invasion update. At least those that were able to obtain it. I'm not bitter. The crossing guard is lame, the handshake is goated, and has jiggle physics, so it's twice as goated. The bat out of hell is gruesome and funny, and I've talked about before how I wish more weapons had more customization options, and this one is a leading example of what I want more of. The Freedom Staff is wielded by tryhards that take the game a little too seriously. The Memory Maker isn't used by anyone, not even the finalists who earned these rightfully. The Conscientious Objector is a really cool item in concept that is used for furries, porn, and furry porn exclusively. The Necro Smasher is cute, but forgettable. Hell, I got rid of mine just so I could have more backpack space. The Pretty Machete is the new age zoomer version of the Bat Outta Hell, and I will not elaborate. The Saxy is one of the coolest and infamous items in the game. The Golden Frying Pan makes my coconuts tremble in ecstasy, and the Frying Pan is the greatest weapon ever to be placed into a video game. Also, the Lugormorph gets overused a lot, but it's a really great prop to use for SFM projects. I recorded this bit right after the capper part, but for some reason that part and only that part got corrupted, so I have to slap it hastily on at the end like this. Fuck! Can I talk about the fat Russian guy now? Damn! Who am I talking to? Natasha. Big, loud, and slows you down. Stat-wise, this thing hasn't changed all that much, but there are some interesting things I want to talk about with this weapon. Apparently, for 4 whole months, this thing just could not destroy sticky bombs. There was an exploit prior to 2010 that allowed Heavy to run at full speed while shooting. Oh yeah, I'm sure that was a devastating problem. One that had to be fixed right away. But not being able to destroy stickies, nah, go to hell for 4 months. Before 2011, this weapon would just straight up prevent scouts from drinking bonk or criticola, like some bullet equivalent of a silence ability. A few other changes were added to this, and in fact all miniguns, including some weird-ass math involving sentries, but it's not really interesting or worth talking about. But what do I think about this weapon? I feel like this is a somewhat contentious item, or maybe it's more accurate to say it used to be. I don't really see many people using it now. I didn't see it that much before either, but I think with all the qualifications they made with this weapon, having the slowdown be range-based, only getting the damage resistance stat when you're spun up at below health, I feel like it overcomplicates this weapon too much. And yet, without these stipulations, this weapon would be broken. I think it comes down to this. Sometimes, you just win a game purely by being annoying. Maybe you're a cloak and dagger spy that waits outside the enemy spawn to backstab the medic over and over again until you force them to swap to pyro and waste 5 minutes looking for you. Maybe you're a cow mangler soldier that only alt fires down choke. Maybe you're a pyro that sits in a corner with a dispenser in your lap that tapes down left click and wiggles the mouse around engineer buildings. My point is, sometimes you play lame and you win a game. Sometimes when nothing is working, you resort to underhanded tactics. And sometimes, where there are skunts buzzing around your team like the gnats that they are, sometimes you gotta pull out the fly swatter, the Brass Beast. Another weapon with the Noob Unlock moniker attached to it. And to be honest, I never understood it. People treat this weapon like it's one of the worst in the game, and I think a big reason for that is not adapting to the playstyle. And no, I don't mean anchoring yourself to a capture point and turning yourself into a sentry gun. Although that is one way to use it, I know people are afraid to, or even think it's not possible to, be aggressive with the weapon that makes the slowest class in the game even slower, but I promise you, you can. People see heavies using this thing and immediately underestimate them, and more times than not, that's how I've gotten so many kills with this thing. People seem to only think about this stat when they charge towards you, before being ripped apart by this stat. You aren't just a sentry gun, you're a sentry gun that can constantly change positions. This does not work all the time, and I would be dumb to insinuate otherwise. Sometimes the enemy keeps their distance, and when that happens, you need an escape plan. Very funny, but actually I'm talking about these. If they're keeping their distance, that means they're shooting at you, and if they're shooting at you, use the Fist of Steel to back up and retreat. When they attempt to close the distance, or try to melee you when they see the gloves come out, then you switch back to brass mode. I find the balancing act of finding the right time to use this weapon kinda satisfying. At least it's more interesting than using the Tomislav on every map for every occasion. Oh yes, and the other reason this weapon is probably disliked so much. The Hibernating Bear is the worst item set in the game. You will not catch me advocating for the devil on that one, but the Brass Beast isn't the cause of why it's so terrible. We'll talk more about it when we get to the other items that are a part of that set, though. Alright, let's get this out of the way. Design-wise, fashioning a minigun to look like a Tommy gun is really cool. Alright, that's all my praise. I don't like this weapon very much. Not because of its stats, I don't think it's a bad weapon by any means, but you can probably tell by this point that if a weapon is almost exclusively used by everyone, I grow a distaste for it.
You are a hipster! What?
For weapons that are used by everyone, I don't have much interest in speaking on it extensively because everyone uses it. The net is cast so wide that there isn't much to talk about that you don't already know, or whatever personal stories and feelings I have towards it are just not that interesting to talk about. But I'll tell you something that is interesting to talk about. In 2011, this thing used to have a spin-up reduction of 75%. That may as well be no spin-up time. Oh, but don't worry guys, they lowered it to 40%. And then a year later, like almost exactly a year later, it was brought down to 10%. And during Gunmetal, it was given its accuracy stat and spin-up bonus of 20. Yep, that's it. Sorry guys, there's really not that much to talk about with this weapon. Hey, did you guys know that this thing used to be called the Hue Long Heat Maker? Yeah, they changed it to just Heater 8 days after it was added to the game. I don't know, thought that was neat. God damn it, why is Heavy so boring? You know why I was dreading doing part 2 for so long, besides having to do research after graduating college? Because there's this middle section of nothingness when we talk about weapons. Like, I think it gets more interesting later with actually fun classes, but heavy and engineer weapons are just so... Like, what the hell am I supposed to say? You want me to regale you with the stories of falling asleep on my right-click button while pushing the cart? This weapon didn't get interesting until 2016, and it's still bland. A 10% damage penalty is so small it's almost unnoticeable, and the 25% damage increase against burning players can be cool, I guess. Good luck getting any mileage out of it besides when a spy tries to rip you off the cart you're standing on, because that's the only class that's gonna get close enough to feel your flames. You know what? This is my video. I can do or say whatever the hell I want. Heavy is boring, and so are his unlocks. Half of you are gonna skip this section anyway. Just because he's slow doesn't mean we have to be slow going through this. The Sandwich is one of the most infamous and reliable weapons in TF2 history. But just like air blasting and moving buildings, we've kind of just gotten used to how streamlined things are with the current Sandwich, but it actually took a lot to get to that point. Heavy couldn't even give teammates his Sandwich until a year after its release. Yeah, an interaction as common and as basic as throwing baloney at your medic to douse the fire burning his flesh was not a base mechanic. Oh, and hey, you know that neat trick you can do where if your Sandwich is on cooldown but you're at full health, you can pick up a health pack to recharge the Sandwich meter? That is not a trick, and in fact was the only way to get another Sandwich back then. That's right, for 2 whole years, there was no recharge meter. It's really fascinating to me how the concept of time can change a base gameplay mechanic like having to use medkits to charge your Sandwich into essentially a hidden stat. I'm sure there's at least one new player watching this video that didn't know you could recharge the Sandwich with health packs, and if you were an OG player, it's probably the only thing you know about the Sandwich. The DeLocas bar is a chocolate bar with the Team Fortress insignia etched into it, and that's about the most interesting thing you can say. We're fast forwarding through this one. Oh, what? What, you don't want me to? Okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, let's go ahead and read some of the stats real quick. Here. In 2013, the DeLocas bar went from restoring 15 health a bite to 25 a bite. The Gunmetal update added a 10-second cooldown to the item. You know what? I do have something to say. You remember the Void? A place where not bad but not good enough weapons go? I'm creating a new realm. Only exists in ×10. A weapon that claims to exist within the game of TF2, but is not remembered by anyone until they enter a ×10 server. You want overheal? Go beg one of your Steam friends to pocket you. I almost have something interesting to talk about with Heavy, but we gotta get to the melees before it really gets interesting. The Buffalo Steak Sandwich is the worst lunchbox item in the game. I wish it could be more fun. The idea of forcing a Heavy to use melee and giving him a speed boost sounds so fun in concept, but unfortunately the steak doesn't also shrink his hitbox. It also doesn't make him faster or even as fast as any other class in the game, Oh, and whenever you're under the effects of this thing, you also take more damage. Eating a whole steak doesn't change the fact that you are an 8-foot tall wall of flesh, waddling towards people with nothing but your bare hands. Basically what I'm trying to say is, this item would be really fun if it didn't strip away most forms of your protection, while also making you more vulnerable to every source of damage. The best use for this weapon is literally just getting back to your team faster, and there's already a weapon that helps you do that without taking away a slot of an actually useful item. The second banana, an item that is not only a testament to Heavy's failures, but a prophecy that has yet to come true. But, you know, being second place isn't so bad. You know that playground insult. First is the worst, second is the best. It kind of drags on for a bit after that, but you get it. Some people argue the banana is better than the sandwich in some situations. Now, don't ask where I stand on that debate. I don't play Heavy. I be having sex.
He's lying! He's lying!
No, but I get it. It makes complete sense. Most of the time, you really don't need a full health heal. Carrying around the sandwich can feel like the equivalent of only using full restores in an RPG because you stockpiled only the best healing items with absolutely no in between or smaller doses because you wanted to be prepared but you didn't end up using half of them anyway. And anytime one party member so much as gets their knee scraped, you have to waste a full heal, except it isn't a waste, it's all that you have and there's still a million more, but you're a psychopath that keeps hoarding it because you might need them for a fight that comes later even though you're nearing the end of the game. Yeah, it's just like the sandwich from TF2. Smaller healing but more consistent healing is a pretty damn good trade-off to have, especially when that recharge time stat is complete bogus. It's actually closer to charging 66% faster. I know it's semantics, but I like that the Heavy was able to cheat the winner and make out with some kind of victory, however small it may look. Just like the weapon itself. Oh hey, it's you again, old friend. Now's a good time to remind everyone about my multi-class rule. The first time I cover it is the only time I go over the stats. Any times after, we're only going to focus on how the weapon is when used by its respective class. Nobody uses the shotgun on Heavy. Alright, it's melee time. The KGB, not you, are one of those weapons that's so respectably simple that no changes have been made to it since its release. TF2 has a lot of items that put you in a gambler's high. Weapons that can get you a chain of kills long enough to stretch around the equator. Weapons where, when you're able to activate it, you don't just want one. Now, some people have adopted a playstyle with these gloves that revolutionize fat scoutery, getting a kill with the KGB and swapping to a shotgun of your choice, but literally just use stock. What are you doing? You're a Heavy. You do not need more downsides. Now, this strategy is really powerful. If you're a little bitch, you want crit kills, you got a perfectly good weapon right there to give you more. Pull that lever, you one-armed bandit. Yes. Yes, my god, you've done it! They've made the Heavy fun! I didn't think they could, but they... That scout. Oh my god. It's okay, Heavy. Maybe when your update comes out, they'll give you a third leg so you can run faster. Wait, that's not what I meant. Wait, whoa! Heavy, no! You can't paint flames on your boxing gloves! Or what? Am I gonna go too fast? No! Because it'll go straight to your health bar. My health bar? And then you'll go too fast. So apparently those flames aren't decorative, because even in its base form, this weapon slowly drained your health, while having a 50% damage penalty. Man, that's harsh all for the reward of going fast. Something that admittedly all gamers strive for, but still. And in 2012, Valve agreed, removing the damage over time aspect and reducing the damage penalty to 25%. And then they slathered him in Girardi. Tough Break also added a completely pointless increased holster penalty, and then our old friend reared their ugly head, is what I would have said, but actually, after seeing what this weapon has been through over the years, it makes me wonder if I've been too hard on it. The answer is no, I couldn't possibly be harder on this thing than Valve was, but I came from an era where the health drain stat never existed. Come to find out, it had it all along, on top of a 50% damage penalty. Makes me reevaluate my opinions on Jungle Inferno ruining this weapon. Now, I'm not saying Valve stopped being so hard on this weapon because they actually decided to accelerate the drain rate the more you use the weapon, but no damage reduction stat at least. I understand why they did what they did. You don't want a fast Heavy barreling through teams, so you have to either check his damage or his higher health pool. The problem is that they did both for a while. Even when they temporarily got rid of the health drain stat, they just replaced it by marking him for death, and they still had a damage reduction stat. Looking at this weapon now, I think it's in the healthiest place it's been. Does that mean I like it? No. No. Even if I think this weapon is in a very, very slightly better place than it was, it still just doesn't feel that fun to use. It doesn't feel good to use. Because remember, it's not just health drain, it's max health drain. Yes, it regenerates over time, but that is irrelevant when you get to the objective with this weapon and have the health of a scout with the speed and hitbox of a heavy. The Warrior's Spirit, a weapon that looks like it should belong in Fallout. Valve has tried so hard to make this weapon viable, and by tried so hard, I mean thought of a random positive attribute to slap on this thing in 2015, seeing it wasn't enough and deciding to do that same positive attribute again, but a little bit more this time. But look, you do 30% more damage now. And take that much more too. Okay, I know it's a little late to make a plea to Valve because it's been years and there's only the janitor working on TF2 and they definitely don't watch my videos, but I'm gonna try anyway. Valve, I promise you, Heavy having a melee weapon is not that overpowered. Yes, I know, he's a big scary man that can suplex bears, but he only excels at close range when he is shooting at people. He's the size of a house and moves about as slow as one. I really don't think so many of his melee weapons need damage reduction or less health or damage vulnerability. And now is as good a time as any to acknowledge that. We've done it. We've gathered them all. And now we could talk about this god-awful item set. Oh fuck, it's the suplex bear guy, wearing the bear that he suplexed to death. And he's charging right at me. Wait, what's that stat? And that one too? It can't be that hard. Yes, an item set that does everything in its power to discourage you from using melee while being built upon using your melee. I don't have to explain why this doesn't work, right? This clip explains everything. You see why it isn't the Brass Beast's fault. Like, at least that weapon is independent. These two, on the other hand, are codependent toxic manipulators that only hurt each other, but stay because of the cost-sunk fallacy. Fuck me, that got sad. Why do y'all keep letting me make these videos sad?
You think it's a cry for help?
The melee heavy subclass is often ridiculed and laughed at, unless it's the KGB, and it's really no wonder why. It's impossible to even entertain a melee playstyle with heavy, and honestly, I think he deserves it the most. Or at least some kind of subclass or alternate playstyle that isn't a joke. You never stop to think about that, do you? We have all these subclasses, valid options for their respective classes. Bleed Scout, Pie Bro, the infamous Demo Knight. All heavy subclasses are jokes, gimmicks meant to humiliate someone dumb enough to fall prey to them. Fat Scout, Fat Spy, even Boxer Heavy to some degree, which they should call heavyweight. I mean, come on, it's right there. I just wish Heavy was able to do fun things without being punished for it. I wish there were fun melee options for Heavy.
Mr. Krabs, I have an idea.
Out of the way, you.
Fine, let's get this thing out of the way so we can talk about real fun heavy melee weapons. This weapon used to be funny, now it isn't, the end. Okay, let's talk about... Well, it feels like a mosquito is pecking me repeatedly, so that must be the eviction notice Heavy's assaulting me, well, trying to assault me to get me to talk about this weapon. Fine. The eviction notice is one of those weapons that was never good, was always a stupid gimmick to mess around with, and then someone somewhere got it in their heads that it was somehow overpowered, so they took a weapon that was borderline useless but funny to use, and turned it into something irrefutably useless and unfun to use. To be fair, the base of this weapon is still the same, swing fast, hit soft, but I think the patch notes are very telling. What do they tell me? They had no idea what they wanted to do with this weapon. On a whim in 2015, they added an attribute that gave you a 3-second speed boost on hit. That's it. Same year, a few months later, you now have a flat movement speed bonus, and they kept the speed boost on hit. But of course, it caught that all too common heavy melee curse. Putting damage vulnerability on heavy and not making games are two of Valve's biggest fetishes. Funny enough, if you want an idea of how long I've been working on this video, Valve actually did make a game, but I already put it in the script, and once it's in the script, I gotta say it. Here's hoping I don't accidentally put a slur in one of these things someday. Anyway, on the topic of, you know, the weapon we're actually talking about and damage vulnerability, it makes even less sense to me putting it on a weapon like this because these things are not killing people. I wish they would stop putting damage vulnerability on weapons that just don't need... Man, I have got to stop making wishes in earshot of my monkey's paw. That's 2 videos now. I mean, like... Genuinely, what the hell is Valve's problem? These things are a joke, a gimmick. You can punch someone for 10 seconds straight and they still wouldn't die. That's not an eviction notice, that's a notice me senpai. But they decided to go and make these things a more unusable GRU. Why does Valve have to place this atrociously unfun stat onto anything that makes heavy faster in any capacity? I don't want to repeat myself, but again, damage or health. You only have to worry about balancing one of those things, and they already had that figured out. These weapons have one of the heftiest damage penalties in the game, bar none. Faster swings or otherwise, you're just not gonna catch bodies with these things. Now, whenever you pull these things out to reenact JoJo's, you're gonna be effectively taking damage from 2 sources. The person, or persons, shooting at you, and the weapon itself siphoning your blood. Now, let's talk about the actually fun melee weapons, the Holiday Punch and the Fists of Steel. The 2 melee weapons for heavy that I use exclusively. None of this running fast or punching fast nonsense, no bear claws or boxing gloves, just a soft pair of mittens and my hard set of gauntlets. Let's start with the Holiday Punch first, a weapon that I'm sure requires very little introduction. Critical hits with these do absolutely no damage. However, if someone is hit with a crit, they're forced into a laughing fit. Did you hear that for a second? That was weird. Anyway, that's already a very enticing gamble, but it gets even more interesting when you factor in that hitting someone with these mittens from behind always crits. This, of course, spawned a subsection of the Fat Spy playstyle, one in which you hobble over to enemy lines, sock someone in the spine, and taunt kill them. While this is a strategy I wholeheartedly support, it's not actually why I use and love this weapon so much. You see, dear viewer, I'm a gambling man. But I do like to have some semblance of control. I could get into a melee fight with many melee weapons and take the risk of getting a random crit. It's that mentality that makes the pan as dangerous as it is. It's also, arguably, more dependable to bring a different weapon. As I'm chancing a random crit anyway, I might as well bring something that will straight up kill them if it hits. But I don't need to tell you that the hit detection in TF2 can be, how you say, fucked. And sometimes all it takes is one stray mouse flick from a cocky scout or one wide turn from a charging demo knight to squeak out a cheap back hit, completely immobilizing them with laughter. Bottom line, this weapon is just funny. I like using it. Similarly to why I like using the Fists of Steel, which I'll get into very soon, is because I think most people underestimate the strength of the weapon. And it's no wonder why. This is the quintessential weapon for Hoovies, a group of people synonymous with the concept of being non-threatening. And while these weapons are better at creating ceasefires than certain presidential figures, they can also surprise and completely displace your foes. Now let's talk about the Fists of Steel. I won't lie, the added stats of less overheal and health from healers in general does soften my meat a little bit when it comes to using this weapon. But I stand firmly in my stance, I guess, that this is a nice niche weapon for heavy. If you're on the defensive and the enemy team is getting a good push going, you can use these to fall back a little with an extra padding of protection. If you're on the offensive and need to get a good push going, these gauntlets can sometimes help close the gap so you can use your minigun. But who the fuck am I kidding? This is me we're talking about. The Pastel Witch himself. What if we just throw all subtlety and pretense out the window and charge headfirst into the enemy team? Now I know what you're going to point to, and yes, however, there is a very simple way to bypass this. Press the Q button. Oh, he figured it out!
Find him!
That's always the strat. If they figure it out, then they gotta die.
Oh, look at that turret on the right. Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at that turret on the right on this fucking... Look at that motherfucking thing.
All he can do is watch! All he can do is watch!
here under.
We're going.
Oh.
All he could do is just watch!
What is going on?
Oh,
man?
shit!
Wait it out, wait it out, wait it out!
Nom 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 nom!
No way!
Fuck you, Pyro! Oh shit, there's more! Get the fuck back to spawn where you belong, bitch! I'll leave the dancers alone, but you must die.
You don't, that don't hurt you. Go in there. Get in there. Go through.
He's like, oh, he knows. No. If they know, you just switch right on back. That's the strat. Yeah, it's as easy and as chaotic as that. Charge down the gun wielders, and if they decide to use their brain cells and come at you with their melee weapon, switch right back to your minigun, or hell, you could even bring a shotgun, since they'll be doing their best to close the distance. You're probably going to need a medic or two if you do decide to go down that meat shot route, but I don't know. I think this is kind of the most fun way to play heavy, and kind of the only time I play heavy, in case you haven't noticed with these clips. Heavy is not my favorite class, by any means. I don't find him all that fun by himself, and many of his weapons aren't very interesting or fun, in my opinion. But I think my love for the silly-ass Holiday Punch and Fists of Steel have put some much-needed air back into my sails. Now I think I'm ready to tackle the second most boring class in the game. God damn it. Hey, did y'all know that the Frontier Justice has a cap on how many revenge crits it can get? Did you know that they implemented it one day after it was added into the game? Did you know the cap is fucking 35? I mean, yeah, I guess compared to Infinity, 35 is a pretty harsh restriction, but fuck, if you let a sentry get 35 kills, scratch that, if you let a sentry gun get 15 kills and you haven't destroyed it once yet, I think that engineer is liable to have all the crits he damn well wants. This weapon really hasn't changed over the years, which seems fitting to me, as I think of this as the engineer unlock. There's probably a good portion of people who think the Gunslinger is the engineer unlock, and personally, I think because the Gunslinger drastically changes the playstyle and mechanics of engineer, it's hard for me to think of it as the quintessential unlockable. It doesn't evoke the same feelings as the Force of Nature for Scout, or the Sandwich for Heavy, but the Frontier Justice does for some reason. Maybe it's just because this was one of the first unlockables I received, like, ever? Maybe it's because it was the weapon I used most for a while. Maybe it's because I was and still am obsessed with taunt kill weapons. Who knows? Now's probably a good time to talk about something that you've probably passively noticed in these videos. Sometimes I just have way more to say about a weapon on the personal side of things as opposed to talking about the weapon's history. Well, for weapons like the Frontier Justice, there isn't much to talk about in that department because, and I want to make this clear, this weapon has not received any balance changes. But anyway, the purpose of this video is to kinda do both. Sometimes a weapon's history is more interesting to talk about and discuss, and sometimes I just want to talk about how I feel about a weapon, or playstyles I use with that weapon, or strange stories I have associated with that weapon. With weapons like the Frontier Justice, weapons that have not received any stat changes whatsoever over the years, obviously my personal anecdotes are going to be more common. And sometimes a weapon has a checkered history on the Wikipedia page and my life, and you'll get a little bit of both. What I mean to say is you didn't open a video about some guy reading the wiki page to you. You opened a video about a guy who is grossly obsessed with the history of one of his favorite games. A man who is reminiscing about the past while sprinkling in some objective trivia about the items he's discussing.
Hey, are you stalling so you don't have to talk about engineer?
Shut your mouth. Real quick, you might notice a distinct change in audio, and that's because, for a reason I still have not been able to figure out, my last mic just all of a sudden stopped working with my editing software. So I'm using one of those podcast mics that make you look like you really know what you're doing. I don't. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So if it sounds a little bit worse, too bad. This video's been haunting me for the past year. Y'all gonna get it whether you like it or not. Widowmaker? Oh, hell no, I'm not fucking talking about Overwatch. Oh, wait, I see where I messed up. The Widowmaker is another weapon that really hasn't been changed that much, apart from lowering the amount of metal it uses per shot, and adding a really strange addition in 2016, where you do 10% more damage to someone if your sentry gun is also targeting them. It's not like
overpowered or anything. 10% is practically nothing, and if you're shooting someone with your sentry gun, they're probably gonna die either way. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, someone saw the Widowmaker and thought, man, it needs a small buff, which already it didn't. It did not need a buff. But it's even weirder that they decided this was the change to make in order to make it stronger. It just... Anyway, this is the tryhard engineer weapon. I don't mean that in a good or a bad way. Just know that if you see an engineer using this, they are trying to win. Theoretically, this weapon can be fired infinitely if you can hit all your shots. I cannot. Or, let me clarify, I cannot hit my shots with this weapon. Any other shotgun, I'm fine. Maybe I ain't perfect, but I'm getting a passing grade. With the Widowmaker, though, I think the second I have this stressor in the back of my mind that I need to hit my shots, that's when all semblance of accuracy and composure goes out the window. You'd think a weapon I'm bad with that's often used by tryhards would drum up some resentment in me, but no. No, I actually kind of like this weapon. The premise is pretty interesting. I love the snowball heavy weapons, even if I suck with it. I respect the people who are really good with it. I'm also immediately switching to soldier or demo if I see somebody using this shit, but I can't do this shit, man. I can't. You hear it just as badly as I do, all right? Like, quality-wise, this mic is not that bad. It's fine, but it's quiet, right? It doesn't have bass. I feel like I'm not saying that shit with my chest. Say it with your chest, you know? Like, I'm not. There's no oomph. There's no chutzpah behind this mic. I gotta. Hold on, let me try to fix this other one. This is some bullshit.
This video is gonna fucking kill me before it gets finished, man. I gotta double pump microphones just to get it to work. Can y'all just pretend like I'm a real YouTuber, so then one day when I blow up, it makes it all funnier? There are some hated weapons in this game. There are weapons that nobody uses. And there's weapons that only new players could love. The Popson is one of the most interesting TF2 weapons to me because not only is this weapon widely disliked, not only is this a weapon nobody uses, not even the gibbous touting, pyro-visioned free-to-plays give this weapon a shot. Even they, who use the backscatter on scout without flanking at all, who use the Machina and can't figure out why their gun doesn't shoot, who use the Liberty Launcher, period. Even they do not use the Popson because they see it for what it really is. Bad. It's bad. It's just bad. It's not very good. So, this laser gun, right? Pretty much the only positive is that it doesn't need ammo. I know, there's a whole lot more blue text on the screen, but they're more like passives that will never come into play. But sure, you can drain 10% asterisk of a medic's uber charge. And 20% asterisk of a spy's cloak. If I get a few more asterisks, I'll be able to say a full swear. The Popson and Righteous Bison have a lot in common, actually. They both got their piercing shots removed for absolutely no reason. At least the Popson got a damage boost to compensate for it. Meanwhile, the Bison is still a broken husk of its former self. Still has more fans than the Popson, though, so I don't know, maybe the scales are balanced after all. I guess one side grade to this weapon would be its range. Normally, your primary for engineer is going to be a shotgun, which is obviously best at close range. The Popson fires what's essentially a slug. It also moves about as fast as a slug, but hey, that's something this weapon has over its shotgun counterparts. Range! The Popson has more range, so of course they made it so long-range shots do less damage. Okay, look, yes, in a vacuum, damage falloff is not exactly a new concept, especially in TF2, but it's so strange to me that you would put such a hefty damage falloff on a weapon that shoots projectiles slower than a heavy. Yes, at max range, the Popson outperforms the shotgun, but that's working under the assumption that the person you're shooting at stands completely still for 3 business days to be hit for a measly 32 damage. That's also working under the assumption that the Popson is only better if you fire your shotgun at someone 20 yards away in a genuine attempt to try and kill them, which most sane individuals do not do that. So this weapon excels at close to mid-range. Fine, but so does the shotgun, and the shotgun fires a far more consistent projectile. In fact, it's not a projectile at all, it's hit scan. I feel like just about anything you can say about the Popson, there's a counterpoint to be made. And let me just put out there right now, I know that there are some freaks out there that I'm reliably told are people who think the Thompson actually isn't that bad. Look, I made a case for the Brass Beast and the Fist of Steel. Trust me, I know what it's like to defend a bad weapon, but I just want to say this. A weapon can be effective while still being bad. Let me explain. So, the Vaccinator, right? In most situations, full-blown immunity is just better than damage reduction or damage immunity from a specific source. But sometimes, it just works. Sometimes with the right loadouts or the right kind of enemy team, you can be incredibly effective with it. Fan of War, dog shit weapon. Does that mean it's impossible to get a kill out of it? Does that mean you can't use this weapon as a supportive tool? Of course not. You can find a way to be effective with just about any weapon in TF2. Get back to me on how you do that with the PDA, I'll think of something. My point is, yes, you could spam the Thompson down a choke and probably amass a small graveyard's worth of kills. You can probably deny a medic his uber charge at pivotal moments. You might be able to completely remove a spy's escape tool, but all that goes out the window next game when you fight people that can move left and right. And if you still want to make the argument that this weapon is good because you can spam it down choke points, fine, but was it fun? Did you have fun just sitting there holding down left click? I know the enemy team didn't, and hey, maybe that's enough for you. I respect it, but that's more fun than the other infinite ammo engineer weapon? That's more fun than full guaranteed crits? That's more fun than... Alright, you got me there. The Rescue Ranger. You know, for a while, this was pretty much the only engineer primary I used. I'm willing to bet some of you were like that too. In my case, it felt almost like an obligation to use this thing in a similar vein to the vaunted Uber Saw. Then 2017 happened and... I'm free. I'm free! There's so many other options at my fingertips now, like... Actually, I think I'll just take that one. Do I think changing the weapon to require metal to heal your building made the Rescue Ranger bad? No, I think it made it fair, and that's a good thing. Much like the Uber Saw, there were very few reasons to use a primary other than the Rescue Ranger. You can heal buildings from far away, even teleport them to your hands at long distances. Sure, you give up a more reliable kill tool, but you're the engineer. Your kill tool is the turret. That thing you can heal from across the map with no downsides? Well, not anymore. Now you have to actually consider whether it's worth bringing this item. Furthermore, you have to actually think more while using it. Instead of mindlessly shooting your turret while it's sitting on top of your dispenser like a golden egg, you have to better conserve your metal. You have to make split-second decisions on whether you want to yoink your sentry out of harm's way, attempt to keep it afloat with your healing bolts, or, you know, use your wrench. There is now depth to the Rescue Ranger, and yes, that does unfortunately mean you aren't gonna see as many people use this, but that's a good thing. I and many others can now experiment with other primaries. We can bring different things for different situations. Engineer doesn't have a definitively good option anymore. Right? Why is everyone so quiet? What's going on? Oh, hey again, Panic Attack. Pretty good. I mean, you know, consistent bullet spread is a pretty powerful tool. Engineer may be the class that benefits the most from the Panic Attack, to be honest. For many other classes, the Panic Attack is a secondary, but for Engie, it's his primary. And if he's engaging in a fight with a pesky spy or a soldier or something, he's going to actively be reaping the benefits that whole fight. Don't listen to me, though. Go talk to your uncle about it. The Wrangler. I got nothing, man. What am I going to bring to the table talking about the Wrangler? Have there been changes to this weapon? Kinda. Sure, it's been peppered with tiny little changes over time, one of which was reverted. Little damage fall-off stat here, repair reduction stat there, but have any of them addressed the fundamental problem with this thing? That being the amount of sustainability a sentry gun can have when paired with this item? No, not really. I don't have to explain the Wrangler to you. You're watching a TF2 video. You fought against your fair share of Wrangler engineers. To me, it just feels tiring to talk about, kind of like the Flog. Yes, there was a time where it was all we talked about. It united us in hatred, but I can only shake my fist so much before my hand gets tired. Ask all the men I've jerked off. They'll tell you. Is the Wrangler still frustrating to go against? If you're by yourself in a pub, sure. Is it worth getting fired up about anymore? No. It's a shame because I really think the Wrangler could have had a Rescue Ranger moment like I hinted to when talking about that weapon. It was, and still kind of is, the weapon to pick for Engineer. You have very little incentive to pick other options, all 2 of them. They could have reworked this weapon a bit, maybe have it work on a meter or something, similar to Cloak Drain, a resource that you have to manage so you don't just flick it on every time there's a team fight, or hell, have it on all the time like most Turtle NGs do. Have it be a strong tool that you have to choose wisely when to whip out. I don't know, like I said, it's tiring talking about this weapon. The Short Circuit. We've all gone through identity crises in our lives. Goth phases, getting really into Avenged Sevenfold for a few years, being a fully automatic taser, playing Danganronpa. On release, this weapon was a very ugly duckling with good intentions. A way to protect your buildings against explosive classes. The problem? It fired so slow that you basically had to Dark Souls parry projectiles. Didn't help that this thing ate 36 metal if you missed. So, easy solution, right? Lower the metal consumption, increase the attack speed. And that's exactly what they did. Second problem. Nobody cares about the deleting projectile stat anymore, and people are now just running around tickling each other with this thing. I kid. Though that did happen, the real problem was that now it was just too easy to delete projectiles. No worries, we'll increase the metal consumption just a little bit and lower the damage. I don't even... How does it... So did they... How do you accidentally... Let's move on. Because now it's time to talk about problem number 3. You could still get ammo from your dispensers with this equipped, meaning you could just hunker down in a nice corner and zap projectiles out of the sky, because keep in mind, you did not have to aim at the projectiles to destroy them. Hell, you didn't even have to really see them coming. The laser would pretty much aim itself. So fine, let's make it so you can't get metal from dispensers when it's equipped. In fact, let's try to bring back that parry system again. In 2015, it had a short-range cluster shot that would zap projectiles away. No longer did your fully automatic taser also act as a shield. But then problem number 4 happened. Nobody is using this thing anymore! And this is where my teenage phase analogy comes back, because the Short Circuit started getting really into anime. Yes, you now fire a spirit bomb for your secondary fire, and this would be your projectile destroyer, and all it would cost is... 65 metal. A hefty price for sure, but hey, it's fair. A much wider radius to evaporate projectiles while also moving towards wherever it was fired from, and it's not like you can get metal from your dispensers anymore, so you can't just spam it. Problem number 5, payload maps exist. The Short Circuit used to be such a dumb, silly, stupid, no good, wacky weapon, and I mean that with the utmost respect. I loved this thing, but you ever love something when it's objectively crappier and rougher around the edges? Like, okay, Super Smash Bros. Melee is one of the most broken games in the world. It is held together with tape and bits of string. A game where controller ports and a green costume for Captain Falcon genuinely give you minor advantages. A game where a tournament legal stage can just decide to teleport you to the bottom of the stage and kill you. A game that has so much jank rattling around in it, and we still play it competitively all these years later. Smash Ultimate, mechanically a much better game, with way more characters and way more stages, and way less of this shit happening. But that doesn't matter because this game has Pokefloat and this game doesn't. I sympathize with this weapon a lot because, honestly, I think they took the best course of action that they could have. The basis of this weapon was to protect Engineer against some of his biggest counters. Great idea. Just one question. How do you do that in a way that doesn't just break the game? And I think looking through the patch notes, you really see them try to toe that line very delicately. I talk about the first iteration of the Short Circuit having problems, which it did, but honestly, it's impressive that they implemented something like this without it being flat out broken to begin with. Because yeah, let me make it very clear, this weapon was never considered top tier or even good. Was it cheeky? Absolutely, but where the Short Circuit shines in annoying 2 out of the 9 classes in the game, there was one class it didn't stop. Spies. You know, the Engineer counter. Could this thing fire faster than a hummingbird flapping its wings? Yes. and it also did about as much damage as a hummingbird's wings. This thing was never used seriously, it was a joke, a gag, the whoopee cushion, mousetrap, gum holder, pie in the face of TF2 weapons. Take out the gagginess and add a literal energy blast, and you turn it into, well, just an alright weapon. It makes me a little sad to think about it when it really shouldn't. The weapon is in a more than fine place, but it's not stupid anymore, and I want it to be stupid. The Southern Hospitality, another in the family of could random crit for exactly 1 day. The Southern Hospitality is often looked down upon for engineer wrenches, not because it's necessarily bad, but because there's just much better options. I'd like to toss my 10-gallon hat into the ring. Let's talk about the downside first. 20% more vulnerable to fire damage. Realistically, you aren't gonna run into pyros as an engineer, and if you do, it probably means your sentry is down. And if your sentry is down, and you're being rushed by a pyro, you're probably already dead anyway. They don't need the 20% help. Now, that one upside isn't that impactful either. Very rarely will you be hitting people with your wrench, but of course, this ain't meant to hit people. It's meant to hit snakes. When there are spies getting away with too much, the Southern Hospitality acts as pepper spray. What usually happens is a very obviously disguised spy will meander his way over to my beautiful base of operations, and he gets hit once. Now, most spies are too scared to continue advancing after getting swiped once by this thing, so they'll attempt to go invisible, but keep making pained grunts and leaving trails of blood on the ground, leading to one of my teammates finishing the job I started. If they are not dismayed by the first swipe, hit them a second time. If it takes 2 swings, they're definitely hard-headed enough to place at least 1 sapper down. Normally, choosing to remove a sapper before dealing with a spy is a pretty risky and dumb move, but the spy in this moment has been placed into an ultimatum. He sees me swinging at my sentry to remove his sapper, but he's already lost a decent amount of health, and he's bleeding. Does he risk firing a shot to try and kill me, removing his disguise and announcing to anyone else near me that there's a spy? Or does he tuck tail and attempt to flee like a hit and run? If he chooses the first option, he's probably dead, either to my sentry or by 1 shotgun round that finishes him off. If he chooses the second option, well, I'm probably spy free for the next couple of minutes while he figures out how to approach me. You probably tuned out the second you heard Southern Hospitality. Just ask your uncle about it. I actually thought the Jag went through way more changes than it actually did. However, my dumbass did learn something by doing this. Okay, so back in 2015, Engineer got a nice upgrade where he can build buildings faster during setup time. You basically had the Jag even if it wasn't equipped. So where does that leave the Jag? Do they scale it down? Do they keep it the same? Absolutely not. The bonus the Jag had just got improved, on top of a faster swing speed with a small repair penalty. A few months later, another penalty was added to the Jag, 33% less damage against buildings. That's about as far as I understood. Strange change to cap off this weapon, right? Who the fuck is swinging this at enemy buildings with the hope to destroy them? What I failed to understand is what that stat is actually trying to convey, which is that sappers now take 3 swings to remove instead of 2. Am I a dumbass for this? For not knowing that damage penalty against buildings correlates to sappers taking longer to destroy? Because you aren't damaging your building when you remove a sapper, are you? You're repairing it. And would you look at that? This is the weapon with a repair penalty. Why doesn't the sapper stat get lumped in with the slower repair rate and not a damage against building stat? You don't need this hangnail of a change dangling off this weapon. Whatever, the Jag for a while was considered the basic bitch engineer weapon, or at the very least, the tryhard weapon. Nowadays, I mean, things haven't changed that much, it's still usually the wrench or the Jag, but I think like many items in TF2, time had the biggest effect on it. All in all, this weapon really hasn't changed that much, but I think the stigma around it is much softer. The Eureka effect. Ninjineer. It's Ninjineer. That's all I have to say about it. Here's the problem with Heavy and NG, right? There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no magic happening behind a curtain. Pretty much all their stuff is very, what you see is what it is. Oh man, a wrench that lets you teleport without needing a teleporter and also lets you build them cheaper. I wonder how people use this. We do have some balance changes to go over, although before we do that, I would like to go over one of my favorite changes first. In 2017, quote, fixed engineers using the Eureka effect to teleport out of hell. which I guess means Engineer's soul has been doomed for eternity since October of 2017. In the beginning, you couldn't even pick up buildings with this wrench, just in case there was any room for interpretation of what they want you to do with this thing. But this would all change in 2014. While you could now pick up buildings, those buildings would require double the amount of metal needed normally. And of course, one last change that gave this weapon the identity that it has now: the ability to teleport to your teleporter exit. Now, the problem with trying to place a teleporter behind enemy lines is that these things are begging for people to notice them. They spin, they flash bright colors, and they sound like a ship traveling through hyperspace. But that only happens when both teleporters are online. If you, say, just put an exit down, you now have an exclusively personal teleporter. Doesn't really matter that it takes 400 metal to upgrade a sentry gun once if you have all the time in the world to get set up in the backlines. But honestly, why bother, right? You're back there and the enemy team has no idea how. You might as well act like a hillbilly with a shotgun and just start shooting whatever you can. Who cares if you die? You can teleport right back the second you respawn. Even if all you do is take attention away from the front lines, you are still somehow helping. In a small attempt to curtail this, Valve removed all previous penalties a year later and replaced them with basically the same penalties. Slower construction hit speed and 50% less metal from ammo and dispensers. So yeah, it's still slow as fuck to build things, just in a different way. I would argue a worse way. At least before, you just had to chip away at the upgrade like a raid boss's health bar, but now we're swapping more manual work for more legwork, running to and fro across the map, trying to get enough metal just to upgrade a building once. Or, God forbid, sitting on a dispenser twiddling your thumbs for 20 or 30 seconds. Current day, the construction hit speed bonus is still just as slow, but they lowered the punch of less metal from pickups by only 20% as opposed to half. Oh, and teleporters are way cheaper to build. To me, this weapon is too gimmicky. This strategy works. Oh, fuck, does it work. But man, a class I already don't find that exciting, made more slow and more boring with this weapon, kind of just makes my eyes glaze over. I'd honestly rather have a stat that removes level 3 construction while you have the wrench equipped, or even a stat that just lowers the max health of all your buildings. The Gunslinger. Jesus Christ, the Gunslinger. We've talked about controversial weapons, the Flog, the Reserve Shooter, the Sandman, but oh dear God, I don't think any of them come close to the Gunslinger. I'm not going to get into it too deeply because it's not that kind of video, and frankly, I don't want to. I got 3 whole other classes I got to talk about after this, but in brief, extremely brief, the Twinkle in Germa's eye had a notorious hatred for mini-sentries, and for many years that drew a line in the sand. Even today, mini-sentries are a heated topic. Not because of Star or Dane, though. I think it's all her fault. Joking aside, this thing is actually part of the family. Oh yeah, you know the one. Except this is the valedictorian of the family, for it was still able to crit, and it was a secret held close to its chest for nearly 15 years. Ooh, yeah, it's not really a secret. You probably know about it by now, but it's so weird that it wasn't officially documented anywhere for such a long time. In case you somehow don't know what I'm talking about, 3 consecutive swings with this will crit every time. The antithesis of a random crit. To be honest, I completely forgot mini-sentries couldn't be repaired prior to 2015, and yep, that's about it. Yeah, a weapon as polarizing as the Gunslinger had basically no changes to it for years except a few small buffs in 2015. Kinda crazy. So, what do I think? Is it a scourge on TF2? Do I hate mini-sentries with all my heart and pray for their removal? Am I being hyperbolic enough for you to tell that I don't give a shit? I don't know, I never had a problem with them. People call them annoying pests and like, yeah, that's just what sentries in general are. They're designed to stop you, to slow you down, to lock down an area. But of course, that's not where most people's hatred comes from. It comes from the combat NG loadouts. Frontier Justice and the Gunslinger. Fire and forget sentries paired with guaranteed random crits. Maybe this is another thing that just fades with time, but this just isn't something I see anyone complaining about anymore. I don't even see people using that loadout much anymore. My theory? I don't know, people wisened up and realized don't play light classes against it and you'll probably do fine. Hell, a sniper by himself can deal with the problem pretty easily. It's, and I hate to phrase it like this, a small annoyance at best and only something that NG is gonna get away with if you let him. I think the Gunslinger is fine and it's a fun little shake-up to Engineer. Mostly used on attack for engineers that aren't interested in setting up a nest, but instead making sure his team can always and will always be pushing. They probably prioritize teleporters and find the health increase a nice buffer in order to move that gear up towards the enemy a little bit easier. You know what? Even though there's 3 whole classes after this, I'm feeling pretty rejuvenated. I won't lie to you, I've had to take breaks on and off writing a script for this video, but I think a big reason for that was just staring down the barrel of Heavy and Engineer. I just don't feel as excited to talk about either of them compared to, like, literally any other class. But we're through that rough patch now. My motivation to work is rising again, and what better class to come back to after a break than Medic? I haven't actually started writing Medic's parts yet, but I imagine it'll be a brisk walk. I'll update you on screen with a message from the future me. See, he's having a ball. There's a certain code that you live by on Medic. There is only one primary worth using. Unless you want to be a battle medic, but if you're a battle medic, you've probably strayed from the code already. So again, there's only one primary worth using. And it definitely ain't this one. Is anyone surprised to learn that the Overdose has received 1 balance change over the years? Or, well, okay, so they changed 2 stats, but it only got tweaked overall 1 time. Apparently there's another number that Valve hates, and it's 10, because in 2016, the movement speed increase was, well, increased from 10% to 20, and the damage penalty was also increased from 10% to 15. I'm gonna do something a little fun and suggest what I would want the Overdose to do. Let's play with that name a little more and come up with 2 possible solutions. The first idea I had was to give the Overdose a meter to fill by doing damage, similar to the Crikey and Oomph meters. When it's full, pressing the activate button would drain the meter and cause a burst of healing to all allies around you, even dealing overheal. My goal is to basically give Medic another group healing option that doesn't involve playing the violin on a bone saw over and over again. You could even have the burst be a bunch of tiny syringes flying out from the Medic. Keep the damage penalty, of course, and if it proves overpowered, maybe throw in a stat that you can't overheal with your medigun when you have this equipped, making it so you can only overheal through your Oktoberfest meter or whatever you decide to call it. My second idea, well, it involves you knowing a little bit about... It's okay. I'll hold your hand, we'll get through it together. So there's a killer in DBD called the Trickster. I don't know why he's called the Trickster. He doesn't use deception or tricks of any kind. His weapon of choice is a baseball bat. I know that's his stage name in the lore, but you didn't have to make his stage name Trickster either. Oh god, I didn't mean to talk about the lore. No, it's okay. It's not that scary. Hey, did I mention he's a K-pop idol? Look at how cute he is! There, see? All better. Anyway, he has a bunch of throwing knives that he can, well, throw at people. Now, these don't do damage by themselves. Instead, you really have to hit a barrage of them in a short time period, and then a survivor will take damage. I want to take that mechanic and work it into the Overdose. Again, keeping the damage penalty, or hell, even cranking it up more if you really needed to, this weapon would work like any syringe gun. But if you hit a target with 40 syringes, or a full clip, within a few seconds, then they would take a big burst of damage. Kinda like they're, overdosing on all the medicine you just pumped into them. Oh, alright, for being such a good viewer and sitting through my ideas, you can get a little more Trickster. Ah yes, the Blutsauger, the weapon of those who have strayed from the path. Or Array 7. You want to know why the code for Medic has been like this for so long? It's because none of these primaries have gotten any damn changes. Okay, yes, fine, the Blutsauger has received one change. They replaced the no random crit stat with the one negative stat this gun has now, and it has remained that way since 2009. This is the weapon you use when you do not trust your team. You could not trust them in a variety of ways. Maybe you don't trust them to protect you, so you bring this as a little insurance. Maybe you don't trust them to push forward, so you take it upon yourself to take fights. Or maybe you don't trust them to not steal health packs from you when your skin is getting burned off. Two of those are valid concerns, but it doesn't matter, because whenever someone sees you using this, enemy or ally, they hate you. Okay? No exceptions. Your teammates are gonna hate you because you could have brought the Crusaders to help us, and they're probably gonna think of you as another DPS and not a healer. The enemy is gonna hate you because it'll be ever so slightly harder to kill you. You, one of, if not the most impactful class in the game. I'm telling you all this because I'm not saying I'm any different. I try to reserve judgment, I tell myself not to propagate stereotypes, but all it takes is watching you take that beam off someone for 1 second to fire your Blutsauger for me to completely lose my sense of security around you. The Crusader's Crossbow, the only medic primary in the game. What are you talking about? The screen's been black for the past few minutes until we got to the crossbow. Are you feeling okay? There's very small changes that the Crusaders has gone through over the years, but all in all, just like the other primaries, if Medic theoretically had any, that is, it's remained the exact same. No beating around the bush, no funny jokes or quips. This is the weapon to use. Not even just because it's the best, although it is, but because it is just so satisfying to get hits with this thing, healing or hurting. This is one of those weapons that just seems to magnetize to invisible spies, too. What do you want me to say here? It's the only primary that Medic has. Not much more room for praise. I think fellow content creator The What actually has a very funny take on the syringe guns.
I like the crossbow. I'm willing to bet that you also like the crossbow. But the tricky thing is its mere existence completely invalidates the syringe guns. The syringe guns were all purposefully designed to be bad weapons.
And while I don't know if I'd go as far as to say they were all purposefully designed to be bad except the Crusader's crossbow, it's a hard point to argue. I mean, genuinely, like, okay, off the record, right? The Overdose is just a shit weapon, top to bottom. I think the Sun on a Stick gets used more. The Blutsauger is fine. It's a standard leech type weapon. And the Crusader's crossbow is the only weapon that feels like there was some discussion. You know what I mean? Like there was actually some back and forth, some ideas drawn up on a whiteboard, some thought went into it. Man, Valve kind of nailed it out of the park with Medic. The only healer in the game, and he's probably received the least amount of changes, period. The Kritzkrieg is no exception. No checkered history, no old patches where at one point the Ubercharge made you fly or something. Nope, it's this. It's always been this. You know what that means? If I don't have the patch notes to discuss, I'll just talk about myself, my favorite subject. The first time I unlocked this weapon and I did the taunt for it, not knowing that it actually healed me, I would pretend I was heavily inebriated after taking a hit off my minigun.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Okay, so originally I was gonna just say everything about the quick fix at like 2 times speed because haha, quick, get it? But shockingly, we do have some things to talk about with this weapon. The first being that in 2013, the 50% less overheal stat was added, which leads me to believe this minigun just didn't have a downside until 2013. Apart from no invincibility Uber, I guess, but I mean, none of the miniguns have full invincibility except stock. Same patch, quick fix Uber now affects the medic when there isn't a target to heal, which is something so standard that comes with every medigun that I find it really funny that this didn't have that. The thought of a medic just sitting there, dick in his hands after he Ubers some poor sod that got random crit out of nowhere. Also, apparently you can't capture objectives when the quick fix Uber is active. Just a little fun fact that I certainly didn't know. With stock Uber it makes sense, but with this, I don't know, it seems like a little bit of overkill. So for a while, this medigun was the only way to match the speed of your healing target, i.e. the only way to reliably heal a scout. But now matching the target speed is something that comes with every medigun now. You'd think people would use it even less because of that, but I still see this thing get used a decent amount. Sometimes you don't need anything fancy, you just need to keep your team healed up from a barrage of seemingly unending bullshit. The Vaccinator, a weapon that I've seen have its public opinion sway pretty wide. In the beginning, this thing was a joke. One of those weapons that were associated with noobs. If you saw someone using it, they probably didn't know what they were doing. But then, a tragedy befell TF2. Even though it seems like forever ago now, I still hear the snowflakes spamming. I still see them spinning. 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 Yeah, anytime there was a hacker or a bot, a really great way to combat them was, well, to heal a friendly sniper using the Vaccinator, giving them just enough protection to fight back. I myself have been on the receiving end of this. I will never forget the Vax medic that kept me alive long enough to make a cheating sniper quit. On an achievement server. I never stopped to process it before. What fucking loser goes to an achievement server to cheat? Like, what? I don't know the exact name, but the map, this was years and years and years ago. It had both spawns together, separated by glass, and there was an invisible conveyor belt that would push AFK people into a hole onto a different conveyor belt where they would basically travel in a circle forever. There was a boxing ring above both spawns and a side door that led to a tiny nightclub, and also sniper perches way up in the sky above everything else. I frequented that map a lot, not even for achievement farming, I just really liked making friends in that place when I was younger. Anyway, in the fight against the machines, a newfound respect towards the Vaccinator emerged. Now, I see more medics using this than I've ever seen. There have been a few changes to this item, none too interesting to talk about, except one that I really think should come back. Originally, if you were crit by a weapon using the damage type you were resisting, it would just absorb the damage and completely deplete one uber charge in exchange. That's kind of badass and would really help lean more into smaller ubers with bigger effects. The Solemn Vow, a wonderfully creative and silly weapon. Shame it's not the uber saw. This hypocritical Hippocratic oath has been on the receiving end of many, it's alright, statements. Some people argue it's competitively viable, but if you think I give a piss about that, then you're insane. Hippocrates drank pee from his patients, that's why I made 2 pee jokes, and that's also why it takes 8 Gerati to make this item. The Amputator, surround sound healing, not you, and more self-sustain. Too bad it's not the uber saw. Sometimes I forget a lot of medic bone saws didn't really have downsides for a while. 2013 was when the damage penalty got added, along with the bonus health regen. In 2015, they even let you build uber off your group heal. But let's be real, nobody uses this outside of medieval mode, and strangely Viaduct, like out of all maps I've only seen it happening there. The only weapon in the game that can group heal apart from Mad Milk technically. It would be a way bigger deal if you didn't have to root yourself to the ground in order to do it. I think the Amputator should have a meter you can activate that applies that group healing effect for a few seconds. Maybe have the medic march for death or move slower or something to balance it out, but having to stop in the middle of a push so you can play violin in a corner that, dear God, you hope is safe to taunt in, just isn't that helpful or fun. 3 people probably died in the process of you setting up that group heal. The Vita Saw, a forgiveness mechanic for newer medic players, a way to soften the blow of an untimely death to a random, unavoidable crit. Hogwash compared to the Uber Saw. The Vita Saw is one of the few weapons in the game that I really don't get the ridicule behind. People frickin' hate this thing. You usually see it near the bottom with all the other bad weapons. Your Sun on a Sticks, your Gas Passers, your Cabers, and honestly, I think it's a valid alternative to the god almighty Uber Saw. Prior to 2017, you just flat out saved up to 20% Uber charge, and as I implied earlier, yeah, when I was new to the game and still learning everything, I used the Vita Saw. A lot. Yes, I didn't have the Uber Saw yet and wouldn't for a very long time, but still, after 2017, it's technically better and more stimulating to use. The more hits you get, the more Uber you retain on death. It's like the Nega version of the Uber Saw, careful how you say that. A common complaint towards this weapon is that it borderline promotes dying, which I disagree. The whole point is to have insurance if you die. Nobody is getting 4 organs with this thing and jumping off the nearest cliff just so they can start with 60. You still have to fill your Uber up. Well, even if it doesn't promote death, it'll happen way more often anyway with that negative stat. It's 10 health. How many situations have you been in as medic where you're at 10 or less health and manage to get away? Yes, objectively, you are weaker, but 10 less health really doesn't put you below many thresholds that wouldn't burst kill you at 150 anyway. Now, if it was 25 less health, putting you at scout health, then yeah, this weapon probably wouldn't be that worth it. But of course, none of that really matters, does it? Because it isn't. The Uber Saw. Medic only has one primary and Medic only has one melee. These lazy bastards at Valve ought to give this boy some unlocks. You want to know what peak perfection looks like? Absolutely no goddamn balance changes to speak of. Headed on the head, A1 day 1. Which honestly, how has this thing not received any changes? Ever. It is no longer a suggestion, but an obligation to use this on Medic. I wouldn't be surprised if new players just assumed it came standard with his kit. 25% Uber upon hit, 4 swings, and you have invincibility at your fingertips. And it's been like that for 17 years, all at the price of slower firing speed. But that's not even factoring in the other positive. No, come on. Don't act like you don't know. The 0-point crit field? Are you serious? Okay, so there are some weapons in TF2 that simply get more crits. We know this. We all know this. The Power Jack, the Pain Train, but the Uber Saw, that was the event horizon. The place where all crits have spawned from. This thing doesn't just crit more than usual, it only crits. Don't believe me? When's the last time you remember killing someone with the Uber Saw and it wasn't a crit? You can't think of one, can you? Cause it always crits. What do you want me to say? It's the damn Uber Saw. Well, actually, there is one thing I can say about it. This video that you're watching right now, this is what got me into TF2. I mean, I had watched the Meet the videos religiously, yeah, but this right here, this was the first time I saw what TF2 even looked like, what kind of game it was. And this map, it was the first anything I had seen from TF2 from a gameplay standpoint. This was where it all started. This was my event horizon. For me, the Uber Saw is the embodiment of TF2. He represents the game, the wackiness, the player base, and its content creators, all wrapped up in a deadly sharp bow. To me, I see more than a powerful meta item. I see the door I walked through that led me to my first match in Badwater, that led me to watching every video from Star and Musilk, that led me to unboxing my first Unusual, that led me to making a hastily put together Halloween costume of the Spy 10 minutes before I was supposed to start trick-or-treating, which led me to making this stupidly long project where I go over video game weapons for hours and hours at a time. It was worth it. Alright, I want to make one thing clear, Cult of Classic cultists. I don't care what El Maxo said, flowers to the goat. If you use the scope on this weapon, you're doing it wrong. So you remember how I said the Uber Saw embodied peak perfection because of its lack of balance changes? Well, with that precedent set, allow me to show you the most perfect sniper weapon. The one from 1999. Which honestly, if you factor in this weapon technically existing across 2 games and remaining the same through both, it's almost like this weapon has been perfect for longer than the Uber Saw. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that the Classic is better than the Uber Saw. I mean, it's not like the Uber Saw can headshot, scoped or unscoped. Have I gone far enough with this bit yet? The Classic is, ironically enough, a classic, stupid, dumb, silly joke weapon. Not just any joke weapon though, this thing sees about as much use, more use, than the Beggar's Bazooka. Now, whether the Colt has anything to do with that or not is up for debate, but honestly, it's kinda always been like this. Every 5 or 6 games maybe, I'll see at least one Classic user. I'm honestly so glad it never received any balance changes. Valve has a tendency to take the silly out of joke weapons, and I'm glad that they knew exactly what this weapon was. Has just the right amount of challenge and satisfyingly visceral payoff to not only make this weapon fun to use, but a weapon that makes you want to use it. You know what? The Medic might not be the only one with like 5 patch notes total, as the Hitman's Heatmaker has technically only had 1 change. Stats have all stayed the same. This weapon has functioned the same way it has since 2012. Only difference is that your focus meter used to trigger automatically. That's it. This used to be my weapon of choice back in my Gibbous days for a very, very specific reason. You know how in old GTA games headshots held no subtlety at all and would just make someone's head pop like a pimple? You probably see where I'm going with this, but yeah, the decapitation mechanic on this rifle was just very satisfying to me. There's gotta be a better way to say that without sounding like a psychopath. To be honest though, everything about this rifle is satisfying to me. From the softer ping sounds when you fire, to being able to line kills up back to back when you activate focus. However, this weapon's reputation has been dragged through the mud as it was the weapon of choice for, say it with me now, spin-botting hackers. Very good. This weapon really isn't that bad. It's just a shame that there's a weapon that functions almost identically without having its buffs on retainer. But hey, that's what makes it a Hitman's Heatmaker, right? The Bizarre Bargain. The War Pig, try-hard, basic bitch, de facto choice of all sniper mains. This weapon is actually really interesting because technically speaking, this weapon has received repeated nerfs, and it only came out better. So on release, the charge rate was only reduced by 20%. Every headshot you get, not headshot kill mind you, just every time you touch a head with your bullet, it will increase your charge rate by 10%. The cap was also way lower, sitting at 70%. If you hit a body shot or just flat out missed, that bonus would be completely reset. Imagine a long-ranged Eyelander that imagine an Eyelander that just drops all its heads if you missed a swing. About a year later, they changed the head drop penalty to 1 per miss. Another year after that, they doubled the charge rate time, meaning it was now 40% slower. But the max charge became what it is now, a cap of 200%. 2 years later, all manner of pretense and skill gets thrown out the window. There is no longer a penalty for missing headshots. The trade-off? Minus 50% charge rate, and you now increase it by getting headshot kills. This weapon at some point really did require some skill to be effective with it. Now, the benefits are higher than they've ever been without any repercussion or penalty. I love weapons that can snowball in power, but for some reason when it comes to the Bizarre Bargain, it just feels cheap. I don't use this thing, not for any moral stance or because I think I'm too good for it. It just fucks with my muscle memory too much. Something this project has spurred in me though is to try weapons I don't normally. Last time I said I'd use the Splendid Screen and the Persuader more. I think next time I hop on Sniper, I'll give this rifle a shot and see how quickly it gets to my head. You know what else this project has taught me? That I don't know dick about these weapons as much as I thought I did. When did they get rid of the Girardi explosion? I'll tell you when, it was 2018, apparently, but we haven't gotten there yet. Get this, a whole year before the Machina was released, this rifle was the first instance of Sniper being able to penetrate multiple targets. Yes, the funny piss gun could collat at one point. Think that's ridiculous? It could also random crit, that thing that no rifle can do, not even stock. Yeah, the Sydney Sleeper was casually just one of the strongest weapons in the game at one point. And if you know anything about TF2, that sentence should disturb you for more than just urological reasons. Actually, quick tangent, why did this become the piss rifle? Because like, the whole theme is tranquilizer, right? Like I feel like it's one of those things we all know, but don't sit down to think about. There's tranq darts on the side of this weapon. The name of the gun is Sydney Sleeper. So what do you make the gun do? I don't know, stun effect? Slow effect? To which a Valve employee stood up, one leg crossed tightly over the other, exclaiming, "Piss!" before darting towards the bathroom. That explains the misunderstood suggestion. Still wondering whose sick idea it was to make this thing pierce, though. Getting back to the patch notes, in 2015, you now applied Girardi on any scoped hit, up to 8 seconds long depending on the charge meter, which is insane. That's literally putting the marked for death status effect on someone, multiple someones, at long range. But, it wasn't until a year later that they decided to add one of the most fun and interesting changes to the piss rifle. Extinguishing teammates. So weird how it couldn't do that before. Now I can truly be a support player. Why is everyone looking at me? Did something else happen? Right. You're probably talking about how headshots, fully charged shots, and fully charged headshots would cause an explosion of Girardi to coat everyone and everything around the target. Yeah, I guess that was pretty strong too. Genuinely such a cool change that added depth to a sniper that, let's be honest, really needed it. But Valve did what Valve does and took the fun out of the joke weapon 3 years later. Apparently. Again, I had no clue they changed this. What makes me sad is they didn't even rework the ability in any way, just axing it altogether and replacing it with an ability that limits you even more than the weapon did before. The problem with Nature's Call is that now, if you want to get full value out of using this rifle, you're forced to bring Girardi as your secondary. Yes, I know, piss sniper loadouts are a thing, but it was an option. Now, it's kind of obligatory if you decide to use this rifle. And even then, 1 second off your Girardi cooldown is pitiful. I know it has to be this way so as to not allow snipers to summon a storm of golden rain, but that just makes me question why you would add this attribute at all if the only way to implement it without being broken is to just make it negligible. I'm pissed off. Ah yes, the newbie gun. Now, a flat damage buff for easier kills and the inability to no-scope are valid enough explanations on how it earned that reputation. However, on a deeper level, this thing can also be called a newbie weapon because it stunts your growth on Sniper by promoting 2 of his worst habits, hard scoping and body shotting. Look, I'm not a snob, a kill is a kill. Sometimes you just gotta do them dirty and take the enemy out, even if it means a far less flashy kill. Nowadays, you're rarely gonna get called out for body shotting, but back in the mythical golden age of TF2, yeah, it was the quickest way to invalidate your skill. People didn't even have to be creative with their insults, usually just typing body shot the same way you'd reply ratio. Because of the Machina's higher damage, if you were, say, someone who struggled with hitting headshots, this weapon acted as training wheels, still allowing you to kill 7 out of the 9 classes with a body shot. And if all you need to do is be fully charged to get a kill, why would you do anything other than sit perfectly still in one location? Yeah, you know how 2Fort does nothing to prepare engineers for the real world? With Sniper, you have to reposition. Like all the time. If you don't, you'll get picked off. Or people will just stop coming into your sightline. Or you just won't be contributing anything. The Machina doesn't do a very good job at teaching that, and it hasn't tried to change that since its release. You want to know the most recent patch this thing received? 2013. Wasn't a balance update either. Never received any of those. I thought Medic was going to be the easy one. So at some point, I know this weapon just said 15% damage bonus. This extra fluff of text was added at a later date, but here's the thing. The latest patch note is 2013. Nowhere else on the wiki does it tell me when this thing changed. I know you're sitting there thinking, which, is it really that important? Does it matter? It's not like this thing has ever changed over the years. And you're right, it hasn't, but every other weapon wiki I've gone through tells me when they change an item's description, even when the stats are the exact same that they've always been, just worded differently. This is some kind of forced Mandela effect because I know for years this weapon just had the simple text of 15% more damage. But there is currently no documented proof of that. None that I can find anyway. Oh boy, the Luxman. The Kunstman. You know it, you love it, some hate it. This is a weapon that has received a decorative wall of changes, but it stayed true to its form since the beginning. Duh. Like, yes, this is a video game. They have nerfed literal laser guns before, I understand that, but it's a bow and arrow, one of the most intuitive and simple human constructs. There's no plasma technology or rainbow fire magic going on. It sticks in some string. However, there is a particularly interesting patch note I found. At some still undetermined point in time, between October 2017 and November 2021, the Huntsman received a change that allowed it to fire underwater. So many questions. Why now decide to change it? Why leave it undocumented? You know how many YouTubers would have made stupid short videos about that one specific change? Other than that, I mean, yeah, it's the Huntsman. Thing about this project is, there's infamous weapons in TF2. The Huntsman, the Flog, the Machina, the Ubersaw, things that are so broad and so ubiquitous and have been talked about to death for years that there's nothing that I can say. No personal stories or too many funny anecdotes. Ironically, it's the more niche or obscure weapons that I have more things to say, which I hope is more interesting, right? You don't want to just sit in an echo chamber and hear somebody say that the Pomson is bad for the 45th time, right? I mean, the Huntsman takes no skill. Yeah! Let's start with the sniper secondary first, Girardi. And yes, wouldn't you believe it, No balance changes. Well, okay, in 2015, they added the nice recharge bonus if you extinguish a teammate. Very good change. Gives more incentive to act as a team in the Team Fortress game. So, I'm a little confused about one thing. Genuinely, to this day, I don't know what they mean by this. So in 2009, a patch note reads, removed self-inflicted mini-crits, which I took to mean, oh, I guess at one point this could do splash damage to yourself? Makes sense, this was essentially a really gross grenade. This was 2009 when it probably wouldn't even be a thought not to have it splash on yourself. But then I found a Reddit post discussing the Girardi and its past patch notes, which briefly gave me a crisis of faith. But anyway, they explained that this weapon, quote, no longer causes self-inflicted damage to mini-crit. So what does that mean? At first I thought just straight up anytime you dealt mini-crit damage, it also hurt you. But after reading and rereading it several times, my best guess and interpretation is this. At one point, there was a bug where if you had Girardi equipped, any self-inflicted damage done would deal mini-crits. So if I tripped outside my spawn, instead of taking like 10 damage and bruising my ego, it would instead take a quarter of my health bar. Which, if that is the case, yeah, pretty big problem. Very funny how that even happened. But again, I'm a little unsure about that one. Maybe somebody can clear that up for me. Anyway, the weapon itself. The Girardi walks a very thin tightrope in my mind, because truthfully, if this was used to its fullest potential, it would be undeniably the most broken weapon in the game. Worse than Old Flog. But people don't use it to its full potential, and so it's been able to fly under the radar all these years. This item can save you and your team from burning. It can coat an entire objective full of people. Capture point, payload, chokes, anywhere with a gaggle of enemies. And keep in mind, this doesn't just make them take more damage. Mini-crits completely negate damage falloff. And just in case a spy manages to sneak behind your monsoon of micturation, look it up, you can coat him in liquid gold and make it impossible for him to scamper away undetected. All of this with a 20-second cooldown. 16 if you're a team player. So why doesn't that happen? Why doesn't Girardi completely dominate servers and cause YouTubers to make a 20-minute hit piece on the thing? Probably this thing, mostly. Yeah, the knife that was borderline created to be paired with Girardi is ironically holding it back the most. Because, as I said, this item is rarely used to its full potential. When do you most get killed by this item? If you're a spy or some other flanking class, you get a little too close to a sniper that you perceived had no spatial awareness. He drenches you in Australian gold, and then he bushwhacks you. He trims your bush. Shout out Manscaped. I'm joking, they fucked over Mr. GG, screw Manscaped. Keep in mind, unless you're fighting a flanking demo or something, you really don't need those cheeky defensive crits to save you. They're already taking more damage. The most common thing you have to worry about, spies, won't even stick around as soon as they get covered in Girardi, and they'll probably die from a teammate that caught him trying to escape, if not you. The only other thing that prevents snipers from using it on objectives or large groups of people is the simple fact that most snipers stay way in the back lines, far away from the action, which promotes only using it on single targets like spies. And if you're only targeting one person anyway, why not switch to the bushwhacker, and round the cycle goes. That's why you typically see so many Huntsman players using Girardi. They're often in a position where they're pushing up. Girardi is the definition of using 5% of your power, and I shudder to imagine what happens when people finally unlock the other 95. The Razorback. You know, some weapons are made with benefits that counter other classes. Other weapons are just counters to other classes. Have you ever noticed how much stuff was made just to counter Spy? And I'm not talking about Girardi or Mad Milk, stuff that carries the benefit of being able to counter Spy while also having other uses. I'm talking about things like the Homewrecker and the current topic, the Razorback. Items that hold no other benefit besides sticking it to the French. It's almost like the reason why Spy is so hard is because the entire deck is stacked against him. Well, anyway, not many crazy changes. In 2009, they removed the Spy's ability to change weapons after getting shocked, and they also removed a movement speed penalty previously attached to this weapon. In 2017, this weapon became what it is currently, which is to say you couldn't regenerate your shield until 2017, which is kind of bizarre to think about. But then again, when has this thing ever been broken? That's the thing with this weapon, shield, item, whatever. It's meant to discourage spies or even trap them, but the thing about the Razorback is that it only works once. No, I'm not saying it only works once because once you soak up a backstab, you're exposed for 30 seconds. I'm also not saying you're only going to trick a spy with this once. I'm saying an individual player has only been scorned by this weapon exactly one time. I'm sure most of us have had that experience. You're new and you're playing what you perceive to be the coolest class in the game. You walk behind a sniper and you've seen this strange snowboard looking thing on snipers' backs before, but you've never known what it does. Probably just a cosmetic or something, you think, moments before plunging your knife into this unsuspecting gamer's spine. And then a sound plays that is so ear-piercingly loud that it briefly makes you take your hands off the keyboard. You try to swing again out of panic, realize that you can't, and then get random crit and laugh taunted in the kill cam. That was a first for both parties in that interaction. It was also the last. Unless you have no idea what that weapon does, it's not gonna protect you the way you think it will. At best, it'll give you time to react, but you're probably still going to get caught off guard by a spy that snuck behind you. It's just that this time he's using a gun. If he's using the Ambi or the Diamondback, or hell, even the Enforcer, it doesn't really matter that you prevented an instant kill. You still probably won't have enough time to defend yourself. To me, the Razorback is a crutch that stunts a sniper's growth. You hate spies and don't want to get backstabbed. I get it. But that shield promotes complacency. You don't have to watch your back, which means you can spend more time scoped in and less time repositioning. It's a slippery slope. And honestly, if you're getting killed by spy a lot and have to consider putting the Razorback on, maybe instead consider switching classes altogether? Nobody thinks about this thing on its own merits. Unless you're a pyro, but nobody cares what you think. No, what people think about with this weapon was the set it used to be a part of. Back when TF2 was a pay-to-win game, this item was a part of the Croco-style item set, which would grant complete headshot immunity, unless you were at 1 HP. The second he finds 1/4 of a health pack and gets himself to 2 HP though, back to full immunity. Keep in mind, on release, this thing used to also just straight up give Sniper 25 more health. It was already more difficult to bring him down. In 2013, Valve thought that this was just too subtle and decided to add a 15% bullet resistance stat to the weapon. But you take 20% more explosive damage. Then Jungle Inferno turned it into the meh weapon that it is today. No extra health, no bullet resistance or explosive vulnerability, just a middle finger to Pyro. The only downside now is the loss of a secondary weapon, but if you're a sniper, your options for secondary weapons are limited anyway. I don't know, the bullet resistance stat came in handy way more than fire resistance. Unless you're a huntsman sniper, you probably aren't gonna encounter pyros all too much, apart from an occasional scorch shot flare. But if it means I won't have to do extra math anymore to figure out how much health a sniper has left, I'll take it. Overall, this weapon went from a pain in the ass to just okay, in my opinion. I'm sure pyros have other opinions about it, but again, who cares what they think? Without even needing to read the wiki, I actually remembered this item having a pretty wishy-washy patch history. What was it about sniper secondaries that made Valve want to strap weights to the player? At first, the amount of health you recovered was only 1 a second. They also made you walk 90% slower. For anyone not mathematically inclined, that is almost 100%. But don't worry, they reduced it to only 80%. Pretty sure heavies could still outpace you at that speed, but sure. Oh, it was only when you were zoomed in. Wait, why didn't they specify that? Maybe that's why they ended up getting rid of it altogether and replacing it with a 20% damage vulnerability. 20%! And that's across the board damage. Bullets, fire, bombs, anything. Yeah, I don't think that 1 health a second is gonna cover the damages. To which Valve agreed, removing the batshit insane 20% damage vulnerability and quadrupling the healing. Oh. Well, if you were gonna do that, I mean, you could have kept a little bit of the damage vulnerability. I mean, okay. Finally, the change that has messed me up the most, flinch negation now only takes effect when you are fully charged. I wholeheartedly believed for many years that the Cozy Camper was just bugged. What, you're gonna tell me Valve wouldn't do something like that? Leave a weapon with a stat that says it should do something, but it doesn't? You don't think Valve would leave a weapon with a well-known glitch for years that actively hindered the weapon's effectiveness? Anyway, I was wrong, I just never realized that they changed it, but that's not that crazy for me to make that assumption. It's kind of crazy how the sniper received exactly one side grade to his base secondary weapon, and just decided to give him back bling and piss for the rest of his secondaries. The Cleaner's Carbine used to have the Criticola soda popper treatment, where upon getting a kill, you would just be granted crits. You can see how maybe that would be problematic on Sniper, so they decided to change the on-kill effects to grant mini crits. A year later, they punched up the firing rate and added a, and I hate calling it this, crikey meter, which is built up through damage done and grants mini crits whenever you want. But oh, those Valve balance makers just couldn't help themselves. Something about the Sniper's ability to deal mini crits just makes them want to inflict pain on the poor guy, and so a hidden 10% damage vulnerability was added while under the effects of the crikey meter, a hidden stat that was later removed sometime in 2016. This weapon pairs well with the Bushwhacker, probably better than Girardi at this point, but the difference is people actually want to use Girardi. The Cleaner's Carbine is a gun. That's just a gun. A very piss-poor gun, and that's coming from a class that literally has a piss-poor gun. Is it bad? No. Is it very good? No. You know what that means. The Tribalman's Shiv. Kinda makes me sad just looking at it. To my surprise, this weapon actually did receive one patch note. It was a nerf. Lowered the bleed time from 8 seconds to 6, and increased the damage penalty from 35% to 50%. This weapon has, it's always been kinda shit. I think I can finally admit that to myself. I used to swear by this thing when I was a kid, in a very similar way to how I defended the Southern Hospitality. The difference between that weapon and this one is you might actually kill a spy with the Southern Hospitality. Best you can hope for with the Shiv is scaring a spy that doesn't realize just how little damage you're actually doing. This weapon, I think, was always meant to be a deterrent. Something that scares away lower health targets and mildly inconveniences bigger health targets. Not a lot of stuff going on behind the curtain on this one. Sorry, guys. The Shake and Bake is, I guess, technically another perfect weapon. No balance changes to speak of. Hell, you don't even have to scroll to see all of its patch notes. After the Tribalman's Shiv, the Shananana was another sniper melee that I swore by. I genuinely thought this was the perfect weapon. It was like the Equalizer, but on a class that could actually maybe catch up to the target. 81 damage a swing is nothing to scoff at, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, a crit with this weapon doesn't even kill a medic if you're at full health. But what are the odds that you're at full health when you've resorted to using your melee as sniper? The weapon I'm reliably told is pronounced Shah and Shah is very, very strange. It may very well be one of the most forgotten weapons in TF2, and it isn't even that bad of a weapon. For that, I can't just offload this weapon into the void, because it's clear to me that it goes way deeper than that. This weapon was the originator of the void, the force that caused the void to manifest. This weapon isn't a part of the void, it is the void. Ah yes, the golden child that pairs well with golden. There was a point in time where this weapon could just random crit. Yeah, crit when you'd normally mini crit and also just have the chance to crit someone anyway. Also in 2015, they exchanged a 20% fire vulnerability stat for a flat 20% vulnerability stat from all sources of damage when the weapon is active. I didn't have anywhere to put that neatly, but yeah, that was a thing. When it was a weapon that had 2 different ways to crit you, it was kinda indisputably the best sniper melee. Some people today still argue it is, evidenced by the 98% of snipers that use the Bushwhacker, and the other 2% are people that use stock. You ought to know my feelings on the Bushwhacker from the Girardi section. It's a gimmick, a way to guarantee a kill on a spy or instantly win a 1v1. The Bushwhacker Girardi combo is simple and reliable, and that's what makes it boring. Now if you're a real man, that's man with two ends, you'll use this with the cleaner's carbine. This is a strategy that I can respect. It has just the right amount of stupidity that the payoff actually feels worth it. Let me try to explain. Here's the Girardi Bushwhacker combo. You didn't have to work for that kill, that's not satisfying. Now, peppering crowds with your SMG and sneaking into the backline with 8 seconds of guaranteed crits, now that's fun. Those are kills you gotta fight for. This is it. Last class, last few weapons. I want to say something profound. Maybe reflect back on all that I've achieved thus far. But to be honest, I just don't want to think about TF2 for a while after this. Not in a bad way. Like, look, I'm not saying I'm cutting TF2 cold turkey as soon as I upload this video, but man, genuinely, right? The reason why part 2 took so long is because part 1 burnt me all the way out. It was fun to make, and I'm really proud of it. And they say if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life, but trust me, I have worked some days. I nearly split this project into 3 parts, but I knew if I put this down again, straight up, I might not have picked it back up. And here I am delaying yet again, right before the finish line. So, let's not delay any longer. Let's talk about The Spy. Oh, Ambi. Ambi. Long gone are the days where spies were in places no one should be in. The fall of the Ambassador is well documented, but what if I told you that they've lost even more than you think? On the 26th of May in 2009, the Ambi received her first blessing. Headshots would do full critical hits. No more measly mini crits, for she was a refined and grown woman who could keep up with the big boys. A little less than a month later, Ambi received her first curse. Steady hand. The fair lady had to now wait between shots before she could headshot again. Oh, also they removed penetration. Yeah, sorry, breaking character real quick. Why does nobody talk about this? People complain about the Ambassador during the Star Saga, but I don't hear anybody talk about how this thing was a miniature machina. And like, yeah, sure, it probably didn't come into play that often, but that's still kind of crazy. Anyway, the fair Lady Ambi was feared and highly regarded throughout the lands. For years, she would be seen around the arms of many refined spies. She outpaced real snipers, vanquished scouts with a single thunderclap. Truly, her reign was impregnable. That all changed in 2017. October. 'Twas a very warm autumn. Some may refer to it as an inferno. The fair lady received her second and final curse, damage fall-off. She grew weary and weak in her old age, and many of her suitors took notice. No longer could she shoot the head off a man from 30 yards out. In some cases, she couldn't hit heads at all. The people were heartbroken, and no matter how hard Ambi attempted to climb those lofty heights once more, she could never attain it again. Not long after, we agreed to bury her, right beside her father, the dead ringer. Not because she was a bad weapon now, but because she was no longer broken, and we loved her that way. I'd like to deliver unto you the eulogy I gave at her wake. Lady Ambi associated with many spies. Because of this, you'll hear many rumors of her, that she only congregates with the stuffy elite, that she is a crutch, that she's a tramp. The story I am about to tell may not convince you otherwise, but I see her in a much different light. I was but a poor man, nary a hat to my name. I was unskilled, unrefined. One day I saw the fair Lady Ambi with Star. In that moment I thought I would never be able to do that, to be with her grace, hand in hand. Though despite what I was, despite what I couldn't provide, she saw something in me. She did not discriminate and instead lent me her hand. That was the day she helped me receive my first top score. That was the day everything for me changed. With her confidence and support in me, I was able to transform from a downtrodden free-to-play into a man with two ends that spent money on hats and was actually getting kind of good at shooting people and things. Though she is now gone, I will not forget all that she has done for me. And, if I may add, the etchings she has of Scout's mom are pretty fucking sick. Imagine I just did the whole video like that. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna do it right here, right now. Another weapon that... Another weapon name that nobody can pronounce. Here, hold on. Let's delve into where this name comes from. That ought to help us. L'Étranger is the French title of an existentialist novel written by Albert Camus, in which an emotionally detached French Algerian murders an Arab with a handgun. The Arabian murderer has stayed pretty much the same its entire life. The only thing that changed was the addition of the extended cloak duration stat in 2013. Well, I suppose this weapon did go through another change by association. The Saharan Spy item set. Yep, we're talking about these again. Oh, and what a stinky and abhorrent set it was. With the full kit, it lowered the decloak volume. Call me crazy, I don't know. I feel like they could have kept this one. Obviously, you can't, because it would spark an outrage if only this set survived, but compared to Tank Scout and Headshot Immunity Sniper, this seems like a common low-tier, high drop rate upgrade that you'd find in one of them First Descendant Warframe Destiny types. I kind of like the custom Sandy Particle effects they got going on, though. Ooh, what if we combined it? Keep the decreased cloak volume, but when you do uncloak, these custom particles activate. Would that be too much? Would that draw too much attention? I don't know, I just like the idea of Spy appearing from a sandstorm. I guess I should talk about the weapon now. Spy players that use this know where all of the ammo packs are. You'd think they wouldn't really need to, considering, you know, but I think they just became cloak junkies when this Arabian murderer is equipped. The Enforcer was a borderline broken weapon for years, but nobody used Spy's revolvers, so no one noticed. On release, this thing had a flat 20% damage bonus. The downside? Takes you a half a second longer to go invisible. Honey, you think I'm gonna run away with something like this in my hands? 1 year later, some changes were made. I mean, no kidding, right? 20% damage boost with no restrictions? That's busted. And so, a restriction they added. You only receive the 20% damage boost when you're undisguised. What? So, they didn't change anything. If you were firing this gun, it meant you were undisguised. That's just what it did before. The only thing that really changed was the downside of a 20% slower firing rate. One that would stick to this day. I remember when I first got this weapon, reading and rereading and double checking because I was unconvinced that what I was seeing was correct. It's kind of crazy to me that Gunspy didn't become popular until John preached the good word, because this was the prime time to do it. I should know, I didn't play Spy correctly for weeks. Not even the Ambitramp could pull these numbers. 3 long years I enjoyed as seemingly the only person to notice how broken this weapon was. And it became, frankly, what I think it was supposed to be all along. Like, I wholeheartedly believe someone at Valve accidentally did the opposite and didn't catch it for 3 years. 20% damage bonus while disguised. So 1 shot of power, no more. To give it a little extra, a year later, they allowed this weapon to pierce resistance and absorb effects, which is one of those things that's nice, but doesn't really come into play that often. You want to talk about weapons that nobody realized were broken? How about a weapon everyone knew was broken and yet nobody used it? I falsely believed there was some kind of unspoken agreement between all of us to just not use this thing. But recently, it seems like everyone is. Like all the time. Like they just realized they could.
Oh shit.
He's got Diamondback. He's got Diamondback. Don't fuck with him.
Yeah, I see it. He
Flashed a
fucking pulled
loaded gun at me.
He didn't even shoot. He just showed you. Like, this is what I got. Come over here in my fucking corner.
I heard the electricity buzzing like a swarm of bees. I was like, fuck me.
Follow me.
He's like, do it. Fucker looked at me like, Joe, chill. It makes me realize that this whole time, it's just been this scene from Futurama.
It's working. They think we're making out. Wait, why aren't we making out?
I don't know.
Guaranteed crits just for doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's like calling a man a hero for not assaulting a woman. Don't hand out rewards for the bare minimum. You want to know the craziest part? This weapon has received a balance change. A buff. Gain critical hits from backstabs. Yup. Initially, you could only receive crits from destroying buildings. This, at least, forced spies to be helpful to their team, prioritizing engineers over anything else. But that one change, allowing you to get it from backstabs, complete heel turn. Oh, don't worry, your spy will take down that sentry, but, you know, after he goes for a walk first.
He said he was going for a walk. No!
Hey guys, how's your health plan? Apparently it's right.
Your eternal reward. Why not just call it eternal reward? Yes, I know, we've all seen the Markiplier Did You Know Gaming episode. I know it's a reference to Aladdin, but you can't just make it the quote. That's not a reference, that's a source. Why the hell does Spy have so many references to other cultures anyway? There's more items for Spy that reference Asian and Arabian cultures than there are items that reference, oh, I don't know, France? Not you, Elytrandra. Honestly, you might do a little too much. This knife has only received one big change. 7 years after its release. On release, you just couldn't disguise with this weapon at all, making it honestly more of a joke weapon than anything. But again, 7 years later, they allowed you to disguise as someone. Sure, it takes your entire cloak meter, and this knife also makes your cloak drain faster, but at least you have some kind of buffer now. I understand that this is kind of how the weapon has to be, or else it'll be too strong, but that doesn't stop me from thinking this weapon is just bad. I don't think it's worth using in any situation. Let's say you do manage to get behind enemy lines, something that's going to take you 5 minutes after waiting for your cloak to refill from disguising, and taking regular breaks at ammo spawns because of how quickly your cloak drains. Now what? The stupidly obvious answer is to start backstabbing. Yes, but who? Can't go into a crowd and get chain stabs because, despite your victims not making a sound or leaving a body when they die, it is blaringly obvious when an eternal reward spy becomes someone. And it's not like you'll be able to scamper away easily when you are found out. You either risk fighting back and lose your disguise, then have to wait to redisguise, then wait after redisguising for your cloak to come back, or you just try to run away. Another thing that will be difficult to do with your quickly evaporating cloak meter. So, obviously you target people way in the back, right? Angies and snipers. But then that seems redundant. They're far in the back. Their team probably isn't going to hear them die anyway. Or if they did, they won't immediately register that it's a spy. Now you're stuck with a disguise that puts you at a disadvantage. Trying to push forward as a sniper or an engineer is suspicious as fuck, and it's probably gonna get you killed. In just about any other situation, any other knife is better. Better at getting chain kills, better at helping you escape, and definitely better at referencing things. Yeah, let's get it over with. Haha, weave spy weapon, Naruto crutch weapon. Okay, let's move on. This weapon, just like every other spy weapon, I guess, has stayed the same with one change made. Or more accurately, it only received changes once. There is technically more than one change. In 2015, the amount of health lost was lowered from 65 to 55. The minimum amount of health you can now gain is 75, and the maximum amount you can get is 210. 3 big buffs in a row. It's almost like Gabe played favorites. I've said before that I greatly respect and love snowball heavy weapons. This isn't an exception, even if it's the most basic bitch spy knife there is. It's an adrenaline rush, moving from kill to kill, barely keeping yourself from the precipice of death. In my experience, this weapon works best on King of the Hill maps. They usually have a lot of different flank routes you can take, and whether defending or attacking, you know where the enemy is going to be, either heading to point or they're already on the point. That's not at all to say that you can't be effective with the kunai on payload maps or 5CP or anything else. I just, A, personally suck with this weapon on payload maps, and B, personally hate 5CP. In fact, I hate all forms of CP. Shout out Chris Hansen. For a while, the big earner was widely overlooked, but one change helped it garner a bit of respect and appreciation in the community. Oh yes, the one thing gamers strive for. Yes, believe it or not, we are talking about another spy weapon that has received one change. Before, this weapon was, not useless, but it definitely felt like it needed an additional positive stat. Now the big earner feels like a little brother to the kunai. Both knives that incentivize chain stabs in different ways. Hell, if you bring the Dead Ringer, I'd argue you could get more value with the big earner than the kunai, simply because of the amount of cloak you regain on kill. And of course, if that doesn't work, you can always use that speed of yours to run away like a scared little baby. Or, if you're a real man, 2 ends, then you'll use that speed boost in a last desperate attempt to throw off your opponent's muscle memory of a spy's speed and get a cheeky trick stab because of it. Soundsmith has a really good video discussing the big earner in greater detail than I will, but why am I saying that as if you haven't already watched it? The Spycicle. First of all, that name, mwah. Second, I miss the old Spycicle more than I miss the old Sandman combo, and I am not joking. For those unaware, Your eternal reward. You see how dumb it is to name the weapon after the full quote? Whatever, the eternal reward was not the only knife with the silent killer stat. In addition to leaving frozen sculptures of agony, the Spycicle also muffled screams, which further made people question why you would use the eternal reward when you could use a knife that not only lets you disguise, but straight up saves you from pyros. But as of 2015, the silent killer stat was removed from the Spycicle. It shouldn't make me as sad as it does, but it just makes it feel like, I don't know, it's like something is missing. The silent killer stat works so well with a weapon like the Spycicle, the classic murder mystery weapon, leaving no fingerprints behind and all that. Paired with the frozen bodies left behind, damn it was so good! Almost kinda scary. Witnessing a museum of your teammates and having no idea when it happened or where that spy went. Now, well, he still leaves the frozen statues behind, but without the silence, it just feels empty from a theming perspective. And from a balance perspective, I also don't like it. Before, the trade-off for being silent was your kills literally being frozen in time. Yeah, you might not have heard them, but you've definitely seen the spies work. Now they scream and leave a monument of their death behind, making this one of the least sneaky knives you can use. All the Spycicle really gets used for now is as a tool for gun spies, some pocket protection if an enemy pyro comes sniffing a bit too close. The red tape recorder. The fuck you want me to say? No, it hasn't changed through the years. You know what else hasn't changed? Spy. Only having one sapper alternative. Valve, you can't just put a bunch of skins on the original sapper and convince yourself that Spy has variety. And it ain't like it gets much better when we cover his cloak washes either. This thing isn't just a joke, it's the joke. The thing that all other pointless weapons must get compared to. The thing you bring not to be effective, but to let your opponent know that you're fucking with them. Yes, in theory, buildings are going to be offline longer with this weapon, and it might give your team enough time to push and destroy it. You could also just destroy the building outright with a good sapper. But of course, that isn't what spies are trying to do when they use this thing. They know it's bad. They just use it to be mildly annoying and inconvenience you. Your buildings aren't going to get destroyed, but you are going to have to redo all that work. And those few seconds that you spend doing that, some other annoyance is going to come up that you have to deal with. Paired with the sounds that come out of this sapper, I can confidently say it was designed to be nothing if not annoying. Everyone and their mother flocks to Rivals to get their cloak and dagger lowered, but this game's had it for 16 years. Where's all that love been for this game, huh? This is the newbie weapon for Spy the same way it's a newbie weapon for Sniper. It promotes some of Spy's worst habits. Doing absolutely nothing. The idea with Spy is to get in quick and act even quicker. New players who are genuinely trying to use this cloak aren't going to do that. They're going to drag, they're going to crawl. It's going to take them a full minute just to get behind enemy lines, not counting the full 30 seconds they'll spend waiting in a corner for the perfect opportunity to just present itself. I should know I was this spy. Finally, I thought, I don't have to worry about mechanics like cloak management and learn where ammo boxes spawn, and I get to choose when I attack. I'm like a predator.
I'm like a predator.
We're like predators, but we hide.
That's not a predator. That's prey. Prey hides, predators hunt. I'm a predator.
Is a Venus flytrap a predator?
Well,
is that a good example?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, it doesn't really hunt. It just waits.
We're waiters.
Yeah, most of my fond memories with this watch involve playing Asteroid with my childhood best friend. Yes, Asteroid. Sneaking around the base and essentially just people watching. Spamming voice lines to freak out engineers, getting pics from people that just came out of spawn, and then hiding in a different corner. Speaking of people watching, there's another type of player that uses the cloak and dagger. Someone very aware of its shortcomings. The, nature documentarians, or observers if you're edgy. People that want to kick their feet up and just, well, observe gamers in their natural environment. It's how we were able to make so many scientific discoveries of Bing Soy. It's how we document heavy picnics. Hell, it's probably how Blue got all those pictures with Spy and Scout's mom. Oh, right, one change. Since 2015, you may now pick up ammo boxes when you're visible. It's been a nice little romp through Spy. Barely any changes to speak of. I'm sure the final item will follow, son of a bitch. Okay, I know I've talked about a lot of weapons in this series for their infamous reputation, but I think this is where I truly fail as a creator. Because I lack the talent to accurately describe and explain to you just how powerful, just how broken, just how cheap this weapon really was. And I'm not here to tell you that I was better than it. I was excited to not have to learn ammo box spawns when I found the cloak and dagger for the first time. You think the Dead Ringer was any better? An item that forgoes the need for knowledge in anything? You don't need to learn good positioning or escape routes. Hell, you don't even need to learn how to be sneaky. This watch was more than a panic button. It was even stronger than a get out of jail free card. This wasn't an item that gave you a second chance. It was an item that granted you nigh immortality. May 21st, 2009, the Dead Ringer was born. It hadn't yet grown to be a monster. After feigning your death, it didn't matter how much cloak you had left. It would be completely drained upon uncloaking. 1 year later, the mark of the beast was shown. The Dead Ringer now only drains to 40% if you uncloaked early. Seems fair, right? After all, you didn't use all your cloak. But at this stage, you could also refill your watch with ammo packs and dispensers. Yet this still, somehow, wasn't all. You take massive damage reduction upon activating your fake death, and it carries over while you're invisible. Not that they'd be able to see you while invisible anyway. What with the lack of a cloak shimmer, escaping a dangerous situation was as easy as slamming down right click. All you'd have to do is fake your death, round a corner, uncloak, pick up one ammo pack, and instantly refill your makeshift totem of undying. Hell, you didn't even have to uncloak if you didn't want to, because yes, you could pick up ammo boxes to refill your death-defying watch while invisible. You could kill the same spy about 5 different times and he'd have no less than 100 health. This was more than just infinite lives, it was infinite lives with damage reduction, an easy mode setting for easy mode. No longer was the spy some sneaky support class, he was an immovable object, a constant nuisance, a snake within your garden. Spies weren't putting on performances with this watch, dying in a believable way to grant the enemy a false sense of security. They were using it as a parry button. 5 long years this thing reigned before it became what it is today. No more super armor, instantly losing half your cloak upon death, and yes, you are no longer able to refill it while invisible. With so many nerfs that Valve does to overpowered weapons, they often go too extreme, but with the Dead Ringer, the nerfs were so targeted and specific that it was the first time I believed Valve actually played TF2. They knew exactly what kind of demon this thing was and knew exactly what to do to tweak it. Because it should be stated that the Dead Ringer never went away. People still use it, and quite regularly at that. It wasn't an overpowered weapon that was later made to be useless, it was an overpowered weapon that was toned all the way the fuck down. You can still feel traces of its power radiating off of it, but you can also actually, kill the damn Frenchmen when they're using it now. Oh my god, it's finally done. Jesus. So I'm not very good at making an outro. When I first made this script, actually, I left the outro open because I was just like, I'll figure it out when I actually get to it and I finish the video. I'll probably have some more words to say, and I'll be completely honest. No, not really. I got nothing. So I figured, I'd just come on here and just talk unscripted and just kind of be genuine, talk about some things, what's been going on, why it took so long to make this, process of making this, all that. Like I said a lot in this video already, the first part of it burnt me out. The second part did not burn me out that much compared to the first one. It still was a very daunting project. I'm very glad that it's finally over. That makes it sound so much harsher. Like I really did hate working on it. I don't. I was excited this morning to wake up and finally finish the video. I knew that today would be the last day that I'd be working on it. I'm just like, oh yeah, I can knock out Spy in one day and then we'll be done. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for waiting so long for this video to come out. I know it took a while, but it's done now, and I feel like there is a weight off my conscience now, so that's good. It feels weird talking. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels very strange talking genuine after putting on like the wacky commentator YouTube voice. Whoa! I didn't sound like that, but you know what I mean. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was something that's been happening lately. The COD Zombies video that I made has been picking up traction again recently, which, first of all, I'm thankful for. Second of all, I wish it was under better circumstances. I wish my video didn't age so well. A lot of people that have come to that video recently are leaving comments as well saying that, hey, Black Ops 6 finished and Black Ops 6 ending is really bad. And I'm just gonna be, I'm gonna be forthcoming with you right now. I have not kept up with zombies in a very long time. Like, technically, I haven't kept up with zombies since, like, Black Ops 4. I barely know what's going on in Cold War. But I haven't been keeping up with COD Zombies in a hot minute. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. I've been told bits and pieces through comments and also through my friend Green, who has been playing it with his brother and his cousin, and he's been telling me some things that I'm none too pleased about from the little bit that I've heard. Will I make a video talking about COD Zombies again? Yes, I do plan to make a video talking about COD Zombies. First, I want to make a video talking about non-Treyarch COD Zombie endings, because those are also bad. It's also an excuse for me to talk about Exo Zombies, which I don't hate that much, to be honest. I really don't. It has problems. You're not going to catch any argument from me there. I'm not going to try and defend Exo Zombies. It has problems, but I don't hate it like I think a lot of other people hate Exo Zombies, and it'll be a good opportunity to talk about that. And yeah, the ending that is pretty bad and will never have a resolution ever, never, forever. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about COD Ghosts, which technically isn't COD Zombies, I know, but and eventually I will get back around to what Treyarch has been doing ever since the end of Black Ops 4. And yeah, I have to get knowledge on that. I have to do research to know what's been going on before I make a video about that. With the other thing, the non-Treyarch zombie segments, I don't need to do. I mean, I'm still going to do that, obviously. I'm still going to make sure that, you know, what I'm saying is correct, but I don't have to do as extensive research as I would needing to learn Cold War and also Black Ops 6. I kind of know everything that happens with the other non-Treyarch games, and I could talk about that. But then after that, yeah, my morbid curiosity will get the better of me, and I will look at that. I feel like there are other things I wanted to talk about. Oh, your boy's broke. YouTube was supposed to pay me last month. I reached the, for those of you who don't know, you have to reach like a certain threshold before they pay you out, and they pay you out monthly. I reached that threshold before, and they were supposed to pay me at the end of August, and they didn't end up doing that. There was some kind of discrepancy, I guess, with... It was telling me on the YouTube Studio, app, it was telling me that I made it, and I passed that threshold with enough dollars left over, but when I go to my actual AdSense account, on that, there's a discrepancy, and it says, oh, actually, you didn't make it, so that's... So, basically what I'm saying is, I didn't get paid last month. Hopefully I will get paid at the end of this month. So, that's another reason why it's taken a bit, because I've needed to scrounge up some money for some things and focus on that. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if I make this video, then I will probably make more money. I'd still have to wait, but I have to make more money. And that's not to say that I'm doing this solely for money or anything like that, but I mean, I am trying to kind of make this a job, and I would like to get paid for it. So yeah, that's been going on. If any of you saw a video that I uploaded not too long ago, like a few weeks back, of a spy video, and then witnessed it slowly mysteriously disappear. I just unlisted it. The video wasn't doing too well, and I think maybe I'll unlist it after this video has been out for a little bit, and there's kind of some buzz around the channel, and then I'll be like, okay, then I can release this video. And because I feel like that video, like, it's a short video, but I don't know, I put some work into that. I would like it to have more eyes on it. Other than that, yeah, I think that's it. I am gonna pull a Reggie Fils-Aimé, but instead of going to go play Animal Crossing New Leaf, my ass is gonna go play Silk Song. Chances are you might have been listening to this video in the background while you're playing Silk Song. I played it a little bit. I had to, again, I didn't get paid out by YouTube, so I had to sell a few TF2 items, ironically enough, so I could pay for Silk Song. Yeah, I'm gonna go play Silk Song and finish editing this video. I have to make a thumbnail, actually. As I'm recording this, I don't have a thumbnail yet, which I need to do that. I need to get on that first. And then I can play Silk Song. And then I can rest for a little while. No guarantees that the very next video will be me talking about COD Zombies, but I would like to work on that next. I'm not as burnt out, like I said, as I was making part 1 for this video, and I'm actually kind of inspired. I kind of want to do more commentary-esque videos like this. It's kind of got me chomping at the bit to do more, so that video might be coming soon. There's an LA Noire video that's been on the back burner for a while that I kind of want to finish that. Arkham Origins is also in the pipeline, the final little dessert for the playing the Arkham games with my boyfriend series. That also needs to get finished. But yeah, anyway, I'll see y'all later.